the dude just said. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. So, yeah, welcome to Taco Tuesday, and our sound effects are back. So hit it, man.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
It is. All is right with the world. We have sound effects again, and JP's on the board. By the way, JP was underneath the board trying to find out why sound effects wouldn't work earlier.
Yeah, I guess over the weekend, a cord got unplugged somewhere down there. But
the cleaning crew and the gremlins came in and began pulling wires.
Yes, but alas, we have our Taco Tuesday back, so that's all that matters.
Indeed, as long as you got Taco Tuesday.
Now we can have a show.
There you go. It's nice. Speaking of which, we got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at the beginning of hour number 2, U.S. Congressman Dale Strong will be on the line with us, talking about the possibilities of a government shutdown, talking about political violence and whatever else we can get through with him. But yeah, Congressman Dale Strong coming up at the beginning of hour number 2. And then I still got a triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, Shutdown theater, man. Oh, boy. I mean, kabuki theater like you would not believe. Shutdown theater is upon us, and it is politics, all politics, and more politics. It's not about anything but politics. They can try to claim they're being statesmen. They can try to claim that they're just doing what's right for their people. No, they're not. It's about trying to resist Trump, and they wish they were in the majority, and they're not. So Shutdown theater, that's where we are, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, we're going to go a little deeper into what we talked about some yesterday. I'm calling this one inciting violence. Inciting violence. And that's prolific right now. The unconscionable actions of those, especially on the left, who are still screaming some of the worst things, using language that should not be used in the public sector, which does nothing but then stoke the fears and sometimes the violence of people on the progressive left. We'll talk about it. Inciting violence, number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, man, have you been watching what's happening on the international stage? I mean, you've got a possible peace plan in the Middle East. You've got any number of things happening. You've got the possibility of military action in Venezuela. I'm talking about Trump world. Yep, you stand by. We're going to talk about it. Number 3 on the Triple Dipper is all Trump world. And it's a sight to behold, y'all. We are the alpha male on the block once again. All right, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. And I'll just remind you guys that, as always, attorney Stan McDonald is indeed the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. Stan McDonald, longtime practitioner in the practice of law. He's also, oh, by the way, a longtime conservative, a right side ruffian from way back, and the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way. And I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. So let me just start by saying there's been a great deal of news in recent weeks about violence. There has. Mass shooting in Minnesota Catholic Church by a rabid transgender atheist. The assassination of Charlie Kirk by a left-wing malcontent. ICE protests resulting in the National Guard having to be called out in Los Angeles. The shooting and the burning of a Mormon church in Michigan, most recently. Yesterday, the governor of Louisiana officially requested National Guard support to help quell crime in several of his major cities. And yet, the left remains unwilling to accept that their own policies and rhetoric bear fault in the crime waves that we are seeing. Soft on crime policies, defunding police, and crushing social programs that entitle illegal aliens. But perhaps most galling is the continued demonization of law enforcement, especially the men and women of federal law enforcement. Members of the left continue to scream epithets, call law enforcement officers fascists and Nazis and Gestapo and SS and thugs, and claim that they're kidnapping, beating, and abusing and disappearing people, somehow denying them due process. It is recklessly irresponsible, and yet they continue to do it. Of all the violent events I just labeled for you, only one of them is unknown as to a political motive. The shooting and the burning of the church in Michigan was done by a man who allegedly hated Mormons and who may or may not have been a registered Republican. Liberal commentator, though, Jessica Tarlov, she tried to somehow tie him to Republican policies and claim him as evidence that the right side of culture is sharing in the blame for violence. Fox's Jesse Waters shot her down pretty quick by simply saying, yeah, well, we're not inciting people to go kill Mormons like you're inciting people to attack ICE. Well, he's right. They will try to equivocate and conflate their storylines, but in the end, there is a sadly maddening commentary coming from the left that encourages that violence. And I believe it's time to go to the source. Who's funding these outbursts? Who's inciting this language? Who's providing the legal and financial cover to professional agitators who grab the hateful talking points of the left and turn them into violent action? It's time to find out if there's someone who is professionally and intentionally stoking the flames of social upheaval. Look, I understand that recently the Trump DOJ sent word out to the offices of U.S. attorneys to draft investigative plans into George Soros's Open Society Foundation to determine if they've been funding arson, fraud, racketeering, and providing material support to terrorism. I mean, why would we not? Soros's group admits that it gave $220 million to BLM, which led rioting in 2020 that caused massive multi-billion-dollar damages across the nation and 26 deaths. A recent report from the Capital Research Institute indicates that in the last 9 years, Soros's group has poured over $80 million into groups that are tied directly to terrorism. A summary report from that Capital Research states this, and this is a quote. It says, quote, "These groups include the Center for Third World Organizing and its militant partner, the Ruckus Society, which trained activists in property destruction and sabotage during the 2020 riots." Go figure. And the Sunrise Movement, which endorsed the Antifa-linked Stop Cop City campaign, in which activists currently face over 40 domestic terrorism charges and 60 racketeering indictments. At the same time, it says, Open Society Foundations awarded $18 million to the Movement for Black Lives, a group that co-authored a radical guide that glorifies Hamas's October 7th massacre and instructs activists in the use of false IDs, blockades, and economic disruption. Listen, that report, it's amazing to read. The list goes on and on from there. So yes, whether it be Soros's Open Society Foundations pumping money into it all, or some foreign government enjoying fomenting chaos in our streets, the fact remains that going to the source is one sure manner of sucking the life out of the violent anarchists that are bent on bringing hateful destruction to our country. You got to get to the source. You got to take it out. You got to remove the catalyst. It reminds me of a famous story that's a mantra in the Texas Rangers. You may have heard it before. There's different versions of how it goes, but the one that I like the best says that in 1890, the Texas Rangers were already the stuff of legends. They roamed across the Republic of Texas, establishing order, protecting communities, quelling violence, rounding up bad guys. Ranger Captain William J. McDonald was once allegedly called out to, I believe it was the city of Galveston. A major gathering was proven to be more than the town's leaders could control. An illegal prize fight had come together, and rowdy, brawling, drunken mayhem was threatening the security of the town. Ranger McDonald is said to have stepped off the train by himself, and the shocked town leaders wanted to know where the rest of his Rangers were. And he's said to have looked at them and asked, "Hell, ain't I enough?" Whereupon Ranger McDonald walked into the town, located the head ringleader of the mob, pistol whipped him, carried him back to the train, and the crowds immediately began to dissipate. And McDonald is said to have told the town leaders, "One riot, one Ranger." That's a cool story. That's a very cool story. But my point in telling it, though, is not so much about the one riot, one Ranger piece. It's the fact that the storyline says that he went straight to the heart of the matter. He got straight to the core of the solution. He didn't spend all his energy dabbling out on the edges. He got to the core. He got the job done. You find the ringleader, you put him on notice, and you put an end to the fuel that feeds the fire. There's a speech that I love that was delivered at the Pentagon. It was actually given in 2019 by Army Staff Sergeant David Bellavia at a Pentagon ceremony just a month after President Trump had awarded him the Medal of Honor. Look, I'll preempt my recounting of Belavia's remarks by saying that where we are right now is in the middle of a culture war. We're in a culture war that's impacting our safety and security. I don't believe for a second that our communities are all going woke or that we're incapable of maintaining law and order. I also don't believe for a second that dealing with criminals or rioters or anarchists and those that fund them is not just an essential service of government. It is. We got to do it. To the contrary, our men and women in blue are still the finest in the world, and the law enforcement officers that fill the ranks, both state and local and federal, are an all-volunteer force who chose their profession. But at the same time, I do believe that politics and the bleeding heart liberalism has infiltrated all levels that we've never seen before. And it's having an impact. as evidenced by crime at levels we've never seen before, and which recent reports clearly indicate are too often fueled by nasty, hateful, violence-inciting rhetoric and money from the left. So, back to what I was about to tell you. Staff Sergeant David Balavia's speech at the Pentagon. Balavia was awarded the Silver Star in 2004 for his actions in the Second Battle of Fallujah during the war in Iraq. It was finally upgraded to the Medal of Honor and presented to him at the White House by President Trump in June of 2019. A little over a month later, Staff Sergeant Balavia was called upon to deliver a speech at the Pentagon's Hall of Heroes. And in his speech, he minced no words, and he spoke of the warriors that he served with in Fallujah, some of whom died in the same battle that resulted in his own heroics. And better than any highbrow speech by a skilled orator, Staff Sergeant Balavia delivered remarks that have grabbed the attention of many and are said to have really helped recruiting, to be honest with you. Yes, it was a military speech, but it goes to the heart of what I'm talking about. It goes to the idea that the source of problems has to be dealt with. You can't just dabble on the fringes. You got to deal with the source. The newest Medal of Honor winner, Balavia, this is part of what he said. He said, "We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, or who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father even was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We have seen war and we don't want war, but if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you. So help me God, somebody else will raise your sons and daughters." So yeah, you look it up, man. It's a speech that'll raise the hair on the back of your neck. He laid down the scunion. He told the bad guys, we don't want to fight, but we will. We don't want to have to go there, but we will. And he spoke it as a call to those who are at the root, at the core. And he said it was steel in his eyes and gravity in his tone. It was the modern equivalent of one riot, one ranger. You go to the root, you cut it out, and you watch the violence wither on the vine. This is the way. And the left is still screaming and cursing and demeaning. But with all the poise of one who is sure of their calling and firm in their beliefs, we need to calmly say no, and then go right to the heart of the problem, find the ringleaders, and excise them like a cancer. One riot, one ranger. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it. Indeed, if you haven't heard that story before about one riot, one ranger, I encourage you to go look it up. But the other one is, go look up Staff Sergeant David Balavia's speech at the Pentagon, and you will be fired up. You'll be ready to hunt bear with a switch. Anyway, the bottom line is this. You got to go to the core. You can't dabble on the fringes. You got to take out the ones that are funding and instigating all of it. In Jesus' name, I say it. All right, let's get her done. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. You're going to love this edition of the Just Right podcast. Listen, Conrad Thompson is one of the most interesting people I think I've ever met. In his 20s, he started a very successful mortgage company, was living the dream, and then somehow or another, he stumbled into becoming what he calls an accidental podcaster. He is now the world's largest podcaster for professional wrestling. Major stars on his show all the time. Oh, by the way, he was recently inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, and he's never stepped inside the ring. It's the coolest story. You're going to be inspired by it. You're going to be basically trying to figure out how to do more of that yourself. All of it is what I would call just right. Y'all stay tuned. Yeah, let's do a show.
1, 2, 3, hey!
Conrad Thompson, welcome to the Just Right podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Oh,
Beautiful
man.
Gadsden, Alabama.
Are you kidding? We're glad to have you. This is like an honor. I'm pretty sure that we should have had pyrotechnics and smoke when you walked in the door.
Will
Is that
you
the way this
stop?
works?
No.
All right, let's talk. I'm going to do a quick introduction.
Okay.
Let everybody know who's sitting here with me. So, you're just an everyday guy.
Yep.
Is what you portray.
Well, that's real.
However, you run a mortgage company. You've been doing that for a long time.
Yes, sir.
We'll talk interest rates later. But oh, by the way, you're also not only a very successful mortgage broker, but you married Ric Flair's daughter, got into the world of podcasting. Next thing you know, you're inducted into the World Wrestling Hall of Fame. And somehow or another, you've become one of the biggest podcasters / broadcasters / event organizers in the world of professional wrestling. Am I right?
Pretty close.
All right.
It is when you say it like that, it sounds more interesting, I think, than it really is. But thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I just want to get to know you.
Sure.
So first of all, there's what I would call the more sedate side of your professional life.
Yes.
You're a mortgage broker.
Well, banker, but same thing.
Banker.
Yeah,
I apologize.
Mortgage banker. Yeah.
So how's that going, and how do you balance all of it?
A great support team. You know, I've started doing it August 27th, 2001. So just a couple of weeks before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And I had just turned 20. I'll turn 44 later this year, and that's all I've ever done. So I've done mortgages longer than I was alive without mortgages, even through grade school. So it's kind of all I've ever known. But I started advertising a lot in the Huntsville market on radio and television in 2009. And I expanded to Nashville in 2010 and 11 and Chattanooga after that. And then somehow, some way became an accidental podcaster in 2015 with Ric Flair. And in 2016, he introduced me to his daughter. And in 2018, we got married. And yeah, it's a pretty crazy story how it all sort of dovetailed together.
I mean, I thought that my life was eclectic, but then I reviewed some of yours as I got ready for today, and I thought, no, I got nothing.
Well, it has been an interesting life, but what's interesting to me is that you and I are 1 degree separated, that my best friend in life, the guy who actually performed the ceremony between me and my wife, was a guy who I think you were kind of like his youth pastor of sorts.
I was, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How fun is that? Casio Kid, shout out.
Casio Kids, shout out. We love you still.
Yes, absolutely.
And what's kind of cool is I made the joke earlier that tell him I've still got pictures, but then again, he may come back and say, tell him I got more.
I love that. I love that. Pictures when he had hair.
That's
it wouldn't
exactly
even look
right.
like him. He's got plausible deniability. That guy's got hair. That's not me.
Hey, listen, so on the mortgage broker side of you still do that though, right?
Oh yeah, every day. Yes, sir.
I said broker, it's banker.
But no difference. I help families get into mortgages. I help people realize the dream of home ownership and then understand that they can reorganize their debt. Like right now, there's a lot of families who are struggling because, as you've probably heard, credit card debt is at an all-time high. Yeah. At the end of January, a report came out that said that America had $1.21 trillion in credit card debt. It's never been that high.
No.
And if you take a look from the pandemic to now, it's almost like a hockey stick. It's just through the roof. And I think the reason that is because people are hesitant to refinance out of their low rate mortgages they locked down during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So they'll say things to me, Phil, like, well, you know, I'm rate sensitive, so I'm not going to refinance at a greater rate. But I almost challenge that, Phil, respectfully to say, how rate sensitive are you really if you've maxed out a credit card at 31%?
Yeah.
Like once you owe it, it's up to you to figure out how to pay it back. And not only is the interest rate you have on a credit card astronomically high, but the interest you pay on a credit card is not tax deductible, whereas the interest you pay on a mortgage is. So if you could get a cheaper payment and a greater tax deduction, improve your credit score, give yourself more room on that credit card in case something disastrous happens, and lower your monthly payments in the process, how do you lose? But a lot of families just don't really understand that, and they're just taught to think, well, I got a great rate on the mortgage, I need to leave that alone. But it's impeding their ability to take their kids to the movies or go get ice cream or just life.
So you've actually done this for a bit. I can tell by the way you verbalize it. It
Sure.
comes right on out. And I guess too, let me ask you this, because I'm going to chase a rabbit for a second. We all watched the economy over the last 4 years, just the cycles of just craziness, 40-year high. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, text lines are indeed open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it, call it, same number for both. We'll take your feedback. Love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, and don't forget, coming up here in about half an hour-ish, about 35 minutes, we'll have Congressman Dale Strong on the phone with us, talk about this government shutdown possibility that we're looking at. All indications are right now they have not reached an accord, so it is expected that we're going to have some version of a shutdown.
Trump says it's likely.
Yeah, so did Vice President Vance. So yeah, I do believe at the very least it's going to start. The question is, how long will they run it? It actually costs money to do this. It actually lowers the GDP.
Oh, is it? I assume it's because of all the work you got to do beforehand to get it ready, and that's work you're not spending on actual.
There's that,
stuff.
but then there's also the fact that you've got government contracts that aren't being processed,
Mm.
and when you have government contracts not being processed or paid out, then the people who work those contracts, who may be civilians who work for the contracting agency, they don't get their paycheck, so they can't, go into the local economy and do whatever. I mean, it does have an impact. It has trickle down effects that are huge. It's even down to little things like I was talking to somebody. Well, it's actually John Wall, who was headed to a national park for a bit of a vacation, and now he's wondering if it'll be open.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does. David at Bucky's checking in says, JP, something you learn in electronics classes. If the item doesn't work, check and make sure the power cord is on. Says, make sure the equipment is turned on. Also, make sure there is power in the outlet you're using. You'd be surprised at the number of problem solve these simple steps.
Well, I had to do the first hour yesterday, and literally like a minute before I came on, I was like, oh, the sound effects aren't on. I go, well, not much I can do now. So I'm glad I found a fix, just plugging it in.
Hey, before I run out of time, let me talk about Stan McDonald. Yep, Stan McDonald, longtime practitioner of law in the northern Alabama region. So Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law, and a longtime conservative. I mean, like a longtime conservative warrior in the mix, in the fray, in the trenches on all the things that Rightside ruffians care about. But yeah, Stan McDonald, though, as an attorney, he has literally represented his clients in thousands of real estate transactions over the years. Stan McDonald knows how to stand up for you in any local, state, federal court. I like to say, I always do, that if indeed Stan McDonald is your attorney, you would have no greater friend. Likewise, your opponents would have no greater foe. So that being said, if you need an attorney in North Alabama, I'm going to tell you how to reach him. I'm going to give you a phone number. Are you ready? Here we go. Stan McDonald, the law firm is Wilmer and Lee. America First family man. Here's his phone number, 256-533-0202. That's 256-533-0202. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And oh yeah, no representation made the quality of service would ever be bad. It wouldn't be. Why would I say something bad? It's Stan McDonald. He's a friend of the show. He's a good attorney. I like him. Ta-da. Everybody should have a disclaimer like that. Everybody. Like, JP, I can do one for you if you like.
At the beginning of each show.
Yeah.
Just like, JP's running the board. JP.
No representation made the quality of button pushing services would ever be bad. Mike from Chattanooga checking in says, shut down the government. I worked for the government 33 years. And any government shutdown, I only went 2 weeks till my pay was reinstated with back pay. All right. Mike, thanks for, by the way, Mike, tell me what you did for the government, but thanks for checking in. Allie from Athens says, good stuff, Colonel. I had never heard the story about McDonald and one riot, one ranger. Strength for the journey for sure this day, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Allie. It's a great story. Look it up. It's part of the lore of the Texas Rangers. More texts, more content. You guys stay tuned. We will be right back. COVID pandemic set the rates low, trying to get the economy back, stimulation money being thrown in. Just it was madness.
Yes.
It was cats and dogs living together. It was all of it. Are you seeing people returning to the table, though? I mean, that conversation you said you can have with people on a regular basis. I do a lot of real estate law.
Mm-hmm.
You do the other side of it. You're the
Yes.
lender side. Are you seeing people coming back to the table, so to speak?
A little bit. I mean, the people who are in a bad place or life has dictated that they need to make a move.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, maybe there's a divorce or a loved one passes away or there's an empty nester or someone retires or they lose their job. Those are the type of people who are making moves right now, but people are still buying houses. People are starting a new career and they're excited to have a fresh new start in a new town or a new market. And their life has dictated that they have to buy something else. But I look at here locally, you think about Huntsville, Alabama, there's over 500 jobs that have been announced, and there's rumors it's more, that will be coming from the FBI down to Huntsville. I mean, Kash Patel was just there last week saying we hope to bring a lot more than just those 500 jobs. Well, that means there's 500 families, moms and dads, usually a two-family income or two-income household. They've now got to relocate their whole life to Huntsville, Alabama. Now, you and I know Huntsville's awesome, but this wasn't anybody in D.C.'s original plan. No. Like they have jobs, like probably only one of those people work for the FBI, but the other person has a job there.
They're also going to find out they can buy a lot more house here than they can in D.C.
Absolutely.
But some of them never owned a house, and now they'll be able to.
But are people going to rush to buy their existing house in D.C.? See, that's the problem is they've got to sell a house there at the same time everybody else is leaving D.C. So now there's more inventory than ever before. Are they going to be upside down? Yes, their dollar goes further in Huntsville than it does D.C., but if they've still got a mortgage hanging around up there, boy, it's a real challenge. So we've got to get some sort of relief with interest rates. I believe this firmly. As interest rates go, so does the economy.
Yeah.
You know, if we can get real estate moving again, our economy will fix itself. So much of what our economy in America is based on is our single biggest asset. And for most families, that's their house. And so they're not really putting that big asset into play. The economy isn't at full scale. So I think there's think about if you had a crank and a water hose. That's what we've got right now.
Yeah.
You've got a ton of folks who want to buy another home. Their current home no longer suits their needs, but they're not going to let go of this great rate. And they know that home sales are slowing. I mean, there's more listings on the market. There's more inventory than there's been in a while. But by the time, we unkink that hose with low interest rates, we're going to be back in a 2020 situation where we have more buyers than we have inventory. Those prices will come back. So I do think now, if you're a savvy investor or if you're willing to see what's coming, interest rate relief will be there. You can still get great deals on homes right now. If you wait until the rates are better, you will have missed it. I mean, you remember how crazy that was? Multiple offers the same day. It was bananas.
We were doing 5, 6, 7 closings a week in my small firm, and it was in a market, by the way, where I'm at right now that is not Huntsville, Alabama,
right?
Which is not a depressed market by any stretch, but the refinance especially was going through the roof with the rates.
Yes.
All right, so let me ask you this: I can hear the passion in your voice. It's obvious you love what you do and you're a professional at what you do. Which one's more fun, this or the podcasting wrestling side of your life?
Well, listen, that's hard to answer.
Just me and you talking. Which one's more fun?
The figuring out how to structure a deal is fun. Laughing and cutting up with my buddies, telling inappropriate jokes to make people laugh about old wrestling stories. That is more fun.
Yeah.
But there's nothing more rewarding than feeling like you had a meaningful impact on someone's life.
Yep.
And I realized that we can do that with the mortgage business. I mean, I routinely help people experience, a $1,500 a month savings. I mean, that's like they had a second really nice part-time job, because that's like net dollars. So think about how much you would have to earn in order to bring home $1,500. Like, that allows families to do more for their kids, for their moms, for their dads, be more, active in their community. Just relief and peace of mind. That's what it's about.
So I guess in essence, I'm going to paraphrase slightly, but do you feel like you're helping people no matter which side of your professional life you're on?
I do. I mean, whenever we do live events on the podcast side, I always do a meet and greet before, me and
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all talk about this show. This show goes from like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn. Straight across the line from there to what we once again call Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, that's just the radio. That's just radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web. Live streaming the show, looking in on the studio, like right now, video and audio. And oh, by the way, that's in places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then there's podcasters, tons of y'all. Which JP keeps telling me our numbers are getting huger by the day. Is huger a word? I like it. Anyway, the bottom line is we know this is all going on. Wherever you catch the show, we can tell it just means the world to us. So thank you very much. You're the reason why we do it. All right, so let me get in a few more text messages. John from Harvest says, Phil, good monologue. I think the main reason Democrats were going so crazy over defending USAID was it was being used as a slush fund to pay for all sorts of partisan mischief. I agree. He said they were upset their money spigot was being turned off. Yeah, that was, to me, USAID was probably one of the greatest just basically abuses of the public taxpayers. Just awful.
Not just domestically, but globally.
And like they were finding the stupidest stuff that nobody in a public display could ever justify.
Yeah.
Like if they had to go and have a town hall first and ask the public, are you okay with us funding transgender surgeries on minors in Nigeria? They know the answer.
Yeah. Wait, who was it? Was it Kennedy that started that USAID? I believe it was.
I got to look back and see, but I think it was.
But nonetheless, imagine if that president, that whoever did it at the time, was told, well, in 2025 is going to be used for circumcisions in Mozambique. And, and then I bet the president would say, actually, let's not do that.
Yeah, it was like maybe they would have at least turned off the tap earlier.
Mm.
Jerry from Decatur says, amen and airborne on your monologue, Phil. We will, what's he saying? We will, meaning having the power to put our war machine in the enemy's backyard to make them fight us where our women and kids cross bridges going to work at school. That was hard to read. I think you're voice texting, but I get the gist.
Yeah, we get what you're saying.
Airborne, Jerry. Dave from Capshaw checked in. He says, did you know that Democrat spelled backwards is pathological liar? If you held it up in a mirror, that's the way it looks. Let's see what else we got. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Thank you, sir. Also, did you hear that 2 huge hurricane systems in the Atlantic Ocean potentially pose a threat for severe flooding on the U.S. East Coast? I did. By the way, JP 5-0 Vanderbilt's looking pretty good. Alabama could have their second loss of the season. Listen, they're 5-0. Wait a minute, 5-0?
Vanderbilt is ranked 16th. So if I would have told you 3 years ago, game day was going to Tuscaloosa for a 10 Alabama versus 16 Vanderbilt as the primetime game for this upcoming weekend, you'd probably say I'm crazy. But that's where we are. So Vanderbilt's a good team.
I would have, but I wouldn't have said it last year after Bama beat Georgia and then lost to Vandy the next week.
Nope. We would have not have said that last year.
But at the same time, if you would have told me just a few years ago that we'd have Hugh Freeze fighting for his job, here we are.
Yeah. Well,
War Eagle.
different times.
Different times. David at Bucky says, Phil, my wife works at Child Development Center in the Arsenal. They are, believe it or not, considered essential, and as such have never missed a day of work due to government shutdowns. How about that? That's cool. Very good. Glad to hear it. Them that takes care of our kids are pretty essential, I would say. All right, listen, we're going to jump on into this topic about shutdown theater, and let me cover a few things. So, yes, indeed, the government shutdown is looming. We talked about it at length yesterday about the fact that this is a situation that is entirely avoidable. And if you think for a second that the narrative is working for the Democrats, think again. They are on the losing side. Now, their base is going to grab hold of it because their base needs it. Their base needs to know they're fighting. They're doing something for us because, yeah, I mean, that's where they are. They got to show a fight. How long this goes on, I don't know. But I will say that there is nothing about this that really makes a lot of sense. They might say, well, we feel like we had to exert some, power and show him that we're still here. Okay, I get it. But I agree with yesterday we played a clip from Senator John Fetterman, who's a Democrat, who said that he understands policy. In his own words, he said, if you don't like policies the way they are, go win an election. But he said he does not believe it's ever the right thing to do to use the budget process as a tool to get your way on policy when it comes to shutting down the government. Now, that being said, we're staring at it. It's literally about to happen. We're within hours potentially of it happening. Will they shut the government down? And if so, what does that mean? So I got a piece here. I pulled it off Fox and I hold it in my calloused former paratrooper hands. It points out that so far lawmakers do not have a path forward to avert a partial shutdown. No, they don't. And since 1980, I didn't know this, since 1980, there have only been 10 government shutdowns overall. Only 3 of them have happened since the turn of the century. So this is not a norm, although it feels like it is, because I feel like we talk about it all the time. I guess we just talked about near misses.
It's always like, we're about to shut the government down. And then at the hour before, it's like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
No.
I remember one time I took, I used to work in youth ministry. And one of my favorite things to do was backpacking. That's not to take kids backpacking. I loved it in the winter. We had a major winter hurricane, not a winter hurricane. We had a major hurricane that came through, and we had a government shutdown. So when I got on the trails in the Smoky Mountains National Park, there was a time we were hiking, and literally the trail went away, like it was gone. These are blazed trails. These are like real trails, and the trail was just gone. It was storm damage combined with no one there to help clean it up or do anything for the parks.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden, we're like having to drop our packs and figure out where the trail went.
That's awful.
But you don't even think about the small
Yes.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be everything from, who takes care of, the
TSA.
Yosemite National Park to the TSA to FEMA to whatever else.
So, I mean, the TSA is going to keep working. They're just not going to get paid.
They have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Air travel has to keep going. So anyway, it does say that there have been 10 government shutdowns since 1980. Then it says this: programs like Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid will continue. Those are considered essential. They will not be turned off. So if you have any concerns about, your Medicare or Medicaid or your Social Security payments, those will be continuing. Along with the Postal Service, Veterans Affairs hospitals and clinics, and Immigration and Border Patrol security activities. So there's several things within. It's not like everything in government comes to a screeching halt, but a lot does. And then you have a lot of what I would call second and third order effects. If you have defense contractors who are civilians working, near the industry at Redstone, and everybody at Redstone is sent home on furlough, then the people who work their defense contracts, if they don't have something that involves direct interaction, okay, they can do something. But if their job requires them to interact with people who aren't there, guess what? Nothing to do. Federal employees, it says, will likely go without pay. However, and a string of agencies will see their services hampered by the furloughs, like the IRS and the Small Business Administration. Well, the IRS may not be in business. Huh.
Oh no!
What shall we do? Don't throw me in that briar patch.
Please don't say it. So.
Lord, have at it. Okay. Anyway, it does go on to say housing programs may also see a delay in rental assistance and loans and that kind of stuff. That's not going to be a huge gaffe, but if you're in the middle of trying to acquire Section 8 housing or trying to move into or out of a public housing situation, then you may see delays in the ability to get it done. It says that thousands of federal workers, here's one that's got people kind of on edge. Thousands of federal workers who are deemed non-essential may also be given reduction in force memos, meaning the Trump administration has directed the federal agencies that if you were setting people off the payroll and furloughing them during the shutdown because they are deemed non-essential, then you have to question why you have them at all. That's tough stuff, man, for government. The government's not used to hearing that kind of talk. The private sector hears it all the time. The private sector sees people laid off or hired all the time. The private sector recognizes if you can't meet budget, you can't support payroll. The private sector knows that if you don't have clients, contracts, or somebody buying your widgets, that you're just like going under and you got to cut expenses. Government, not so much. So this is a whole new day right here. When they're getting a memo that says, by the way, you need to consider reduction in force for your various departments of those you deemed otherwise non-essential. What? Yeah. So that's real. Here's what I was talking earlier with you about the cost. This article points it out really well. It says the last time we had a government shutdown, January of 2019, the shutdown saw roughly $18 billion in federal spending delayed, which led to a dip in that year's first quarter gross domestic product of $8 billion. And $3 billion of that was never recovered. So in other words, we lost $3 billion in government revenue that was never able to be recovered because for whatever reason, it fell by the wayside and they couldn't go after it. So there's that. And, that's one of the things too, you look at this and go, Schumer's talking about trying to do all the nice things. Schumer really wants this. We should be able to give illegal aliens Medicaid. We should be allowed to do this. We should be able to upfund Obamacare. We can't let this anyway. But never mind the fact that what he's trying to do is also going to wind up having an actual cost to our gross domestic product.
And let alone, it's the same CR they agreed to.
The same CR they signed months ago.
Yeah.
It's nothing different. It's a continuing resolution. Thank you for pointing that out. It's actually a continuing resolution of that which they have already said they were in favor of. And so now they don't want to do it. Why? Because they've got no other leverage in the world. It's all they've got. So that being said, we're going to take a break. We'll come right back, and I'll tell you what was just put out to House Republicans by Speaker Mike Johnson as a talking points memo. They got talking points, and we got a copy. Phil Williams Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Would do like a VIP meet and greet, and you'd be surprised how many people get emotional at the table when they say, "Hey, man, when my mom died, or my spouse died, or my son was diagnosed with leukemia, I needed an escape." And just listening to you guys talk about old wrestling brought me back to that place when I was a young person and watching wrestling with my grandfather or whatever. So just stirring up those feelings of nostalgia and giving people a fun distraction does have value.
Sure it does.
But I'm not interfacing with those folks on a one-to-one basis as often as I am the customers and families that we serve on the mortgage side.
Well, you mentioned old wrestling.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm an old guy. So I'm thinking back to the days of like Tojo Yamamoto
Yes.
and Gorgeous George.
Oh, yeah.
And Rowdy Roddy Piper.
The best.
And I mean, these were the guys of my day. I can still remember sitting in my granny and granddaddy's kitchen in Birmingham with the black and white TV on the roller stand over there in the corner of the kitchen, and looking at my granddaddy, say, "Granddaddy, that man just hit another man with a metal chair."
Yes.
And as a kid, just watch. In fact, one of the funniest ones to me was Tojo Yamamoto used to do a commercial for a bed company, and he would jump on the mattress as proof that the mattress could hold up his weight.
I love it.
And then they would come back and they would say, "And if you don't buy from so-and-so bedding town, Tojo wants to know," and he'd come on and go, "What's the matter, you?" And that was the whole commercial. But that whole culture was built around those old guys.
Yes.
But over time, it became far, far more than what we used to watch in the small arenas on the black and white TV.
Yes.
I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar sport now.
No doubt about it. It continues to get larger and larger too. I mean, WWE is experiencing their greatest success ever right now. And a lot of people are really impressed with that, considering it's happening sort of post Vince McMahon. He's sort of like the Walt Disney of the pro wrestling world. And now that he's out of the picture, I think a lot of people were keeping an eye on it, wondering, what does this look like without Vince McMahon? And we found out it's a hugely successful, publicly traded business under the TKO banner. Nick Khan and Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro, they're printing money for WWE right now for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you're a mortgage broker guy.
Yep.
I keep calling it that.
That's all right. I do
You're a mortgage
mortgages.
guy. Let's just do mortgage guy. You're a mortgage guy.
That's what I call myself on Twitter, Conrad the Mortgage Guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Conrad the mortgage guy
Yeah.
meets Ric Flair,
Yep.
and then now you're married into the Flair family.
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
She was Ric Flair's daughter. Now she's Conrad Thompson's wife. There you go.
Played that for his kids.
No, I'm just saying realistically, I'm not Conrad Flair, but she is Megan Thompson.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So
No,
she
that's
joined
good.
my family, and we're delighted to have her. But yeah, it's sort of a happy accident. I met Rick at an autograph event in Rome, Georgia, of all places. And that was I believe it was November of 2013. And sadly, he had lost his son, Reed, to an overdose in March of that year. So he was in a challenging headspace, but we quickly headed off, and he was looking for a friend. And respectfully, he was looking for a friend to go drinking with. And so I signed up to do it. And one of my friends said, "Hey, man, how many times are you going to drink beer and watch sports with Ric Flair?" And I said, "About as often as I can, I guess. That sounds like fun to me." So that's what we did. And so we just became drinking buddies. And one day, I think we were watching the NFL draft. He said, "Hey, what's a podcast? Can you make any money with a podcast?" And I said, "Well, I don't know if you can make money with a podcast, but show me your phone. I'll
What year
show
was
you how
this?
it works." That was 2014.
So before podcasts were even cool, really.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. CBS had reached out to him and offered him a podcast. So in 2015, he launched Woo Nation, on Play.it, which was a CBS platform. And he would go into the radio station on Peachtree in downtown Atlanta and record his podcast. And he got nervous 2 days beforehand. He said, "Conrad, it just feels weird, me just being alone in a room talking to a microphone.
I get that.
Will you come in to the studio and just let me, you ask me fan questions?" And I said, "Sure." So I thought, man, I don't know how many people are going to hear this, but I don't want to embarrass myself. So I did a lot of production notes, and I walked in with notes for he and I had things bolded and highlighted and all that.
Yeah.
And the people there at CBS said, "Hey, who is this guy and why is he here?" And Rick said, "Oh, he's just going to sit in this episode and ask me fan questions." But at the end, CBS said, "Can you come back next week? That was pretty good." So I became an accidental podcaster. It wasn't the plan, but about a month in, I realized, I've been spending like $100,000 a month on marketing in Nashville, Huntsville, and Chattanooga to promote my mortgage company. But people can hear this all over the world, and I'm not paying for it. I need to get licensed in more states than just Alabama and Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I need to start driving traffic that way. So I quickly did. We went from an ad budget of $100,000 a month. That was the
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Hey, by the way, I checked our merch room, getting a little short, but we still got t-shirts, hats, we got mugs, we got stickers, we got stuff.
We're out of the bulletproof glasses.
Are
now.
we sold out of bulletproof influence glasses?
We've sold every last one of them.
Okay, that will have to get rectified in the near future.
Yes, I think it's in the process of being rectified.
I know of one couple that sent me a picture. They ordered 2 of them, and they got it with the thank you note from me and sent me a picture. They were engaging in their use.
That's what we want.
That's what we want. But anyway, the bottom line is we still have great merch on there. Good t-shirts, Rightside Ruffian shirts, our flag shirts. Go to rightside.media.org. That's rightside.media.org. It's got all our stuff on there, including the shop tab for the website where you can check out all the stuff. Are you putting it on the website? You're so fast. All right. So the bottom line is JP, if you're live streaming right now, has got it on there. Coffee mugs, stickers, hats. Yep, we still got stock. So get there while you can, because apparently stuff's selling out. Man, we got to restock. Back to this dipper we're on right now, Shutdown Theater. So Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, sent out a memo. I've got a copy of the information about it right here. The memo is titled Debunking the Democrats' Shutdown Delusion. That's quite a title, but it's very apropos. So debunking the Democrats' shutdown collusion. What this basically is the talking points for Republicans. Now, some people will say, oh, look at that. They're having to share the talk. Of course they are. They're a team. That's what you want to do. When you go in the huddle of the football game, do you let everybody figure out their own play and how to deal with the defense? No, you call the play. Here's where we are. And then you run the ball according to the play. But here's where they are. The idea is to, in its own words, keep the heat on the Democrats. It's the points they want made, and I agree with this, are that what the Republicans are proposing is a clean, meaning they're not adding anything to it. It's just an extension of what already exists. A clean, nonpartisan, 24-page continuing resolution. Think about that. Have you ever seen a bill in D.C. only 24 pages? My gosh.
No.
A clean, nonpartisan, 24-page continuing resolution that just keeps current funding at current levels through November 21st. So it's basically, 7 weeks? It's not like it's a long time. They're already through the budget process on a number of appropriations bills. They're working the issue of getting budgets ready. The Democrats don't want that. They want the CR to plus up some things that they want, and they're not going to do it. Says, meanwhile, it would avert a government shutdown. It ensures essential services and benefits continue uninterrupted. Meanwhile, Democrats, it says, are doubling down on false narratives. And that's the point, is the Democrats are taking a little thread of something and creating a big, fat story out of it that is not reality. It points out that shutdowns are dangerous. They're disastrous. They are a self-inflicted harm to seniors, veterans, service members, families, the economy, and that the Democrats are now actively trying to force one over policies that are completely unrelated to government funding. So the Democrats are on their heels, but this is all they've got. All they've got right now is anger and rhetoric, and it's largely irresponsible rhetoric. I would encourage you, check out the issues that the Democrats are asking. I mean, first of all, the idea that we're going to see funding for healthcare for illegal aliens. That's part of what they want. How do I say that? Because they want the revocation of an existing executive order that specifically directs that funding cannot be allowed to happen. Well, but Phil, nobody's out there. Illegal aliens can't get Medicaid. Listen, do you think we're stupid? Here's what they do. They go to places like California, and California will use its own budget money to upfund healthcare in their healthcare system, which is their version of Medicaid, for illegals. And they do. You can just look at it. Then they will come back and, money's fungible. So they'll say, we really didn't use that, but we got to have all this money over here so we can do regular Medicaid. Because what they really did was they used part of their money over there for illegals and yet put them in the same system. So tell me how it is they're not funding Medicaid for illegals, because they are, and we know it, and we can see it, and they brag about it, and they pass a state law for it, and they have an executive branch order from the governor of California who signed it. It's real. The bottom line is this. The Democrats want that. You know why? Because right now they're losing on the illegal immigration front, and they're trying to create the narrative that we're the ones who are here for you, millions of illegals. We're the ones. We want you to be happy and prosperous in the United States. That's what they want. So we're going to give you stuff because that's what we do. We give you free stuff. They don't have Obama phones right now. They can't keep giving out the prepaid Visa cards like they used to. We can't keep putting them up in luxury hotels in New York City anymore. So what are we going to do? Give them health care. Okay. That's what they're trying to do. The other piece they really, 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 really want is there is a looming expiration of the tax credit for people who are using Obamacare. They want that tax credit extended. Why? I understand when I say that, some are going to say this is heartless, but I have to ask, why are we continuing to subsidize what we were told we wouldn't have to subsidize long term? Remember when Obamacare was going to be the greatest thing in the world and it won't cost that much? And you get to keep your doctor if you like your doctor. Remember all those lies? None of them panned out. We're paying through the nose. And we're having to give people tax write-offs for using Obamacare. And then guess where the tax write-off goes? Oh, it goes against our bottom line. I don't want people to have to pay more in their premiums. I understand how hard that is. I have, as a private sector guy, I have had to pay my insurance for years. But I'll be honest with you. At some point, we get tired of paying other people's stuff. Democrats, they want Obamacare upfunded by extending that tax credit. Coming up next, Congressman Dale Strong calling in, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
For our mortgage company to $0, and it's all just through podcasts, and we experienced phenomenal growth. We had a much bigger platform because of the podcast. So anytime I get a chance to come on a show like yours, I jump at the chance. I believe in the medium, and I know that podcasting is a great way to grow small business, and I hope everyone listening to this embraces it.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I agree. And in fact, I would call myself somewhat accidental and late in life too. That point, I got a call out of nowhere. Would I do a radio show? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And next thing you know, here I am, radio, podcasting, and all of it.
Yeah.
And really watching something grow. And I'm like you, I'm a dual career guy. I've got a law firm, and yet I don't know which one I spend more time on, to be honest with you. In fact, I probably really do. Here I am sitting with you. But the truth of the matter is, it's a hoot, and you get to do what I call impacting culture.
Yes.
And that's where I feel like my calling is impacting culture, and having an opportunity to be a part of the mix and to express something that other people might go, oh, that's what I've been trying to figure out the words to say. And if I can get that done in a day, I feel like I've done my gig.
Absolutely.
All right. That being said, let me ask you, so the accidental podcaster, but it didn't just stop with the one. You had Woo Nation, you and Ric Flair.
That's right.
Which is not currently going now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, CBS closed Play.it. CBS Radio actually sold. So when they sunset that, Rick and I had already decided, hey, we can monetize this and sell this better on our end if we just take over sales and everything. At that point, we were, quote unquote, just talent. But I, as an entrepreneur and small business owner, I was like, I think there's more money to be made if we just control it all.
Yeah.
So I pitched him on, let's just launch our own show independently. And my buddy Dave Green, who I met because he ran the Cumulus Cluster in Huntsville, which features one of your fabulous shows on WVNN, he had moved back home to St. Louis. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, do you think you could represent me as our ad sales guy? And he said, absolutely. So we came up with, using my graphics girl, like a slate for him to pitch and well, we could, pitch some sales, and it worked. So the success of the Ric Flair show, which we launched, and somehow it debuted at #1 on the sports charts. I said, hey, you know what? This is great, but I sure would like to get some more of those leads the other 4 days of the work week, because I had been used to advertising my mortgage company through the radio Monday through Friday with live ads, because I would call into the station and say what's going on and tell today's success story or what have you. So I thought I need to build more shows. So I had, through a different project, I was doing some recruiting in Nashville, and I wanted to shoot a campaign targeting guys who had worked in the auto finance industry. They understand sales, they understand interfacing with customers, and they understand finance. So I thought these guys are natural to do it in the mortgage business, but a much better quality of life. Anybody who's worked in the car business can tell you it's just a grueling grind of a schedule. So to be able to get back more of that time and perhaps earn more money, I thought, hey, this is a home run. So I reached out to a former WWE producer who had produced a bunch of their stuff through the years for guys like The Rock or Stone Cold or The Undertaker. And I said, help me come up with a compelling commercial. So we worked on it for the better part of a week. And near the end of one of our shooting days, we're just collapsing on my couch at the house like, whew, what a long day. And as we're just shooting the breeze, I said, hey, man, what happened when? And I asked a very specific wrestling question. And he adjusted in his seat, and we talked about it, and he told me the story. His name is Bruce Pritchard.
Okay.
And at the time, he had worked at a Volvo dealership. And then after that, he had worked managing a law firm for a great close personal friend of his named Rob Taylor in Houston, who was really an icon in the mesothelioma and asbestos and all that sort of stuff back in the day. Anyway, I'm saying all that to say he thought he was completely done with wrestling, and wrestling was done with him. But what I heard that day, I was convinced at the end of that conversation. I said, Bruce, we should do a podcast.
You heard the institutional knowledge.
And he said, well, who wants to hear me talk? And I go, dude, every wrestling fan would be riveted by what you just said. The only trouble is we didn't record it. But if we would have recorded that and posted it, it would be the most viral wrestling podcast there is. Well, eventually I convince him to let's just record a few for fun.
How long was the eventually? How long did it take?
Maybe 3 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, because he had just the way it actually happened is he had just launched a T-shirt store on ProWrestlingTees.com. So the idea would be if you were no longer contracted by WWE, but you still had a little bit of name recognition, think like $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. Yeah. Then they were selling shirts that looked like the $1 Million Man's jacket. It's just a black T-shirt, but it looks like it. So it's just a fun, if you get it, it's retro wrestling, you get it. Well, he had some for his Brother Love character that he portrayed in 1988. And I said, here's the thing. I can sell some mortgages. You can sell some T-shirts. What's the downside? So we started doing the show, and before we knew it, we were getting hundreds of thousands of listens on every episode.
How cool is that?
And what's interesting is the day that show debuted, and that's really the one that put us on the map, and we won Sports Illustrated's Podcast of the Year and all that other stuff. That show debuted on the very same day I had my first date with my now wife.
No
so
kidding.
It's a pretty important day in the history of my life.
Remember the date?
August 3rd.
Okay.
August 3rd.
Don't go down that road and not name
That's
the date.
right. That's right. That's right.
Well, that's very cool. And so how long did that one run?
It's still going now.
Oh, that's the one that's still going.
What's interesting is we started in 2016, in August of 2016, and by February of 2019, Vince McMahon had called and hired him back to work in creative. And as we're talking now, he's the executive vice president and creative director of WWE. So depending on who you ask, he's one of the most 5 or 6 most influential people in wrestling. But it was our podcast that sort of was the foray in him getting back into it. So with the success of the Bruce Show, I said, hey, that was the WWF side of things. What if we did one for their biggest competitor, WCW? And I reached out to Tony Schiavone, who was on TBS from 1983 until 2001. Yeah. But then he left and started calling minor league baseball. And when I met him, he actually was working at Starbucks because his family needed insurance. And I said, hey, man, here's what I did with Bruce. I think, we could make some money here and raise the profile for you if you were interested. And the timing was perfect because he had just found out his daughter was getting married. He had a new wedding bill coming, and he's like, hey, let's do it. So we made a gentleman's agreement. I'll sell some mortgages, and I'll let you keep all the ad revenue until we get this wedding paid for. Well, when it was done, we just kind of assumed, well, is that the end of the podcast? And we did a podcast from the wedding reception where we announced, no, we're not canceling the podcast. We're going to keep it going. Well, when Tony Khan, whose father owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, decided he wanted to open his own wrestling league, he was a big listener to our podcast. So he reached out and said, "Can you get me in touch with Shivani? I want him to do what he's doing for you, for us." So now every Wednesday night he's on TBS, and every Saturday night he's on TNT.
Isn't that
Tony
cool?
Schiavone's back in wrestling. So
Isn't that cool? It's
super fun.
It's just amazing. And you know, you call it the accidental podcaster.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think anything's an choose. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, let me bring on somebody who's a friend of this show. He's been on multiple times. He represents a huge swath of our listening area. Congressman Dale Strong is on the line right now. He hails from the Huntsville region. And of course, he is also a longtime servant to the community, and having been on the county commission for many years and now serving in Congress in the 5th District. Let me bring him on right now. Congressman Dale Strong, how you doing?
Hey, Phil, it's great to be with you again, man. Appreciate the invitation.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you making some time. Well, listen, I guess the first question is, are we going to see a shutdown or ain't we? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you this right here. The Democrats are just barreling us into a government shutdown to appease that far left. I mean, you think about it. Schumer out of his league, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffrey, AOC, Ilhan Omar, and Jasmine Crockett, they love this. They have no clue what they're doing and what this will cost the taxpayers, but they could care less. And Schumer wants to get back in bed with them because he kind of got out of the draft for a little bit, but they're trying to appease the biggest wagon jobs in their group.
Well, that does seem to be the thing. Their base is the one calling for this. And it's not like this is not the same. These are the same numbers basically that they signed up for a few years. All you do is continuing in a clean resolution what is already been put in place by their own vote in the past. Am I right?
A clean resolution. This continuing resolution doesn't add one dime to the debt. It just keeps government open. But then he goes in and thinks he's going to outdo the president. You know, sits down yesterday, and you think about it. They brought in like a $1.5 trillion trying to reinstate free health care for illegals, $500 million for NPR radio, National Public Radio.
Oh.
Hey, I want to ask Schumer, why don't he write a personal check to NPR radio and do what you do every day in the free enterprise? You sell advertising, and either your show goes or it doesn't. But NPR wants the taxpayers' money, and I'm telling you right now, we took that out, and I think the vast majority of people are happy that we did that. But then also, you think about the $50 billion they're trying to cut for rural health care. They need to tell the people what they're recommending because it's absolutely crazy. Another $1.5 trillion. And think about this, Phil. Republicans during the last administration went on to a clean CR to keep government open, and they've talked about how you've got to do this, and now look what they're saying. Well, we don't want to go with a clean CR. You look at it, they're a bunch of hypocrites. They're going to get smoked in the mid-year election because I believe the voters can look straight through what they're doing.
Well, and I would agree with that. And I know their base is not going to go with that, but their base is never going to go with anything we say anyway. But so let me ask you, Vice President Vance and the president have both said it appears that we are indeed going to have a shutdown for some period of time. Do you anticipate that there will be a shutdown before this is all said and done?
Well, the last information, I just hung up. I was on a call in D.C. right before I called into you. Looks like that vote's going to go about 5 o'clock. I think they might actually make them vote it twice. But again, I think Schumer's sitting here trying to figure out what he's going to do. But I think that we're going toward a shutdown. I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
They cannot stand that Donald Trump has had so much success in the first 10 months of his presidency. Inflation's down, gas prices are down, groceries are down, mortgage rates are down, the market is up, and Jerome Powell, if he will lower interest rate, this economy is going to run like we've never seen it before. But this is what the Democrats are about. It's unbelievable what we're seeing, but they got some of their people that don't even like this, but they got guns at their head trying to make them stay in line.
Yeah. And meanwhile, we got two major storms barreling around the Atlantic region by our eastern coast, and FEMA's going to need to do its job if something comes ashore. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why this is really bad timing and bad optics on the part of the Democrats.
You would think that they would learn from history. Think about it. we were had to avert a government shutdown. Think about what happened within 72 hours. We had a hurricane that hit, went through North Carolina,
Yeah.
went through Georgia, went through Tennessee. Can you imagine if government would have been shut down? Think about another one of those government shutdowns could have happened right whenever there was some major situations happening in Israel with Hamas. Let me tell you something. This is good for nobody. Anybody with walking around sense knows that closing down the government is going to cost us more to reopen it. But again, obviously, Schumer doesn't give a damn.
Well, so let me ask you, you guys, one of the things that has been talked about on both sides of the aisle by the constituencies, by the people who pay attention, is that the regular order of business is not CRs. CRs are because you haven't got a budget passed, but the whole appropriations process over the last 4 years was pretty broken. And yet I want to make sure I'm clear. You guys actually have been, the appropriations process is actually working. You just need a little more time to get the full budget together. Am I right in saying that?
Hey, you look at it 3 weeks ago, you got the 12 bills out of the Appropriations Committee. 3 have already gone across the floor with a vote sent to the Senate. You've got these other bills that are ready to go. The crazy thing, in the term and a half that I've been in here, I don't understand why we have a recess in the middle of August. That's when we ought to be, plowing the heaviest ground, getting these budgets worked out. But I'll tell you this right here. It is divided up there. It doesn't matter what is recommended. The Democrats are voting against it. I've never seen the hatred toward a president.
Yeah.
And like I say, he's exposed him. He's filleted him like a fish every time you turn around. And I still believe he's probably 3 weeks ahead of Chuck Schumer on making decisions. You watch. I'll guarantee you, when Schumer came in there trying to be Mr. Tough Guy in the White House, I guarantee you Donald Trump is 6 weeks ahead of him.
Well, so speaking of the hateful rhetoric, let me shift gears on you for a minute. We got about 3 or 4 minutes left here together. There's been a huge amount of stuff in the news about violence that seems to also be tied to what I would call violence-inspiring rhetoric. You can't keep calling law enforcement Nazis and jackbooted thugs and Gestapo and all those things and not expect somebody to be inflamed about it and take action. And we're seeing that right now. The death of Charlie Kirk, of course. We had the shooter in Minnesota who shot up the Catholic Church. We've had a number of things that have happened. What are your thoughts on violent rhetoric? And will there ever be a time that some members of the body up there are censured for constantly demonizing law enforcement?
Well, I'll tell you this right here. I hope law enforcement understands who supports them and who doesn't. You look at what's going on in D.C. Field. When I got there, it was just who got mugged the night before. It was who got carjacked. I've never seen an environment like that in my life. If people don't believe that Donald Trump made a difference, he gave local law enforcement the opportunity, but the people in D.C. Deserve not to be getting shot at. Then I think what was the breaking point is you had a young man that was doing an internship with Congressman Estes, shot a matter of blocks from the United States Capitol. And think about it. It was a mistaken identity. And this guy right here lost his life because of it. I'm telling you right now, you look at these cities, if the local law enforcement can't do it, the people deserve to be able to live in a safe community. And some of them are satisfied. You look at what some of these Democrats are saying. They're satisfied with X amount of murders every 24 hours. You think about it. We were having 4 and 5 murders every day in Washington, D.C. I couldn't believe it, man. I've never lived in that environment in my life, but I can tell you this right here. You can walk through the streets today and you're a lot safer than you were before Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. And, back to my question too, do you anticipate that there will be any members of your body that are going to get censured for constantly demonizing law enforcement with this dangerous rhetoric and, calling them fascists and everything else? Do you see that happening?
Well, hey, I'm all for doing it. But here's the thing. Most of them are wearing it with a badge. I mean, you look at it. Omar can't stand law enforcement. You look at the Democratic Party. They hate ICE agents. And what they're doing is they're doing their job. That's what's unbelievable. They have no clue. I just wish some of them would go ride with some local law enforcement or go ride with ICE. The last administration let 15 million illegal aliens into this country, and I'll promise you that's where the problem is. They have no clue the background of them. They came from more than 160 different countries. Many of them were let out of, have done crimes in their country. That's why they put them over here. But if censoring will help, let's move on and do it. But I'll be honest with you, these Democrats could care less about it because they're not paying attention to what's going on Main Street in their own community.
Well, more to come on it, but listen, Congressman, I appreciate it. And as this thing develops with the potential for a shutdown or maybe in the aftermath, we may want to have you back on sometime soon and kind of fill us in. But appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Hey, anything you need, it's great to let the people of North Alabama know what's going on. Talk to you soon.
All right, Congressman Dale Strong, Alabama's 5th District. Thank you very much. All right, we're taking a break right now. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And I don't think anything about what you described was accidental either. It's obvious your entrepreneurial spirit keeps kicking in.
Oh yeah, I'm having a blast.
Well, that also comes out. Let me ask you this: podcasting ain't where it stops.
No,
now you got a thing called StarCast.
That's right.
So StarCast is like legit and brings in people from all over the world and.
Comic-Con for wrestling.
There you go. I mean, it's literally a conference. It's multi-days long, and it brings in all the personalities and the crowds. And you just had one, didn't you? Or did you?
We've got one coming up.
Coming up. That's
right. This July, and right next to where the Cowboys play, it's actually where the Rangers play at Globe Life Field. There's a hotel right in that.
Well, how did this start? You
lot.
went from podcasts and now you're doing conferences. What's the genesis of that?
Well, it's a great story. The major league in wrestling for years and years and years, since 2001, had been WWE and pretty much WWE only. And the leading journalist, we'll call it like what Mel Kiper is to the NFL draft, in the wrestling space, his name's Dave Meltzer. And he has a newsletter called the Wrestling Observer Newsletter. And Dusty Rhodes, another famous old school wrestler, his youngest son, Cody, had grown frustrated with WWE Creative. So he quit. Probably a $500,000 a year job, and bet on himself, saying, I think I can do better outside the tent. So he was hitting the indies and doing well. But a fan asked Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter on Twitter, do you think anyone outside of WWE could ever sell a 10,000-seat arena in the United States again? And Dave said, nope, I don't see it. And Cody couldn't help himself, being the son of a legend like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and says, I'll take that bet, Dave. So he got together with the Young Bucks, a fabulous tag team out of California, and they agreed that they would put their money where their mouth is, and they would rent the Sears Arena in Hoffman Estates on the outskirts of Chicago. It was a 10,000-seater, and they were going to put tickets on sale and make a big splash and try to prove Dave wrong, that wrestling doesn't start and end with WWE. It can exist outside of there. Well, I got engaged that January, and we did it in Mexico. The engagement, I mean, when I say did it. So I bump into Cody at International Baggage Claim. He's coming back from like the Japanese equivalent of WrestleMania. It happens on January 4th every year in Tokyo at the Tokyo Dome. It's called Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So he's trying to be low key. He's in a hoodie, but I saw him and he saw me, but we wind up texting each other like, hey, good to see you, that sort of thing. And I took my shot. I said, hey, man, I know you guys are planning a big show. You haven't announced any details yet, but people are going to piggyback you around your event, and they're going to have ancillary events, smaller independent wrestling events, little conventions with legends or meet and greets and that sort of thing. Yeah. What if you just co-opted me and I created like a convention based around wrestling podcasters? So you would sort of co-opt all the media and coverage for your event and make it feel bigger.
What year are we talking about?
2018.
Okay.
So we could do, weigh-ins and press conferences. And I just want to make your event feel bigger than just the one, hey, we're going to the arena for this 3-hour event and that's it. Let's make it a whole destination for wrestling fans for the weekend. He loved the idea. I asked that I put it on paper so he could show Matt and Nick of the Young Bucks. They loved it. Asked a fourth partner, Kenny Omega, who at the time was the New Japan World Champion. He liked it. So we launched it, and what we created was like the Woodstock of wrestling. I have to admit, I did not know what I was doing, but that's how all business is. At first, you're just trying to figure it out as you go.
Ain't that the truth?
So we didn't know what we didn't know, and I probably sold too many tickets.
You're probably better off not knowing, as a matter of fact, going into it.
Absolutely.
To some degree.
not knowing led to me creating some stuff that other people have copied and some stuff they didn't copy, and thankfully was never repeated because it didn't work. But that's how you learn. You do A and B testing, and we do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
So did they win the bet on the first one? Did they fill the arena?
They sold it out in a half hour. Didn't take any time at all. We set all kinds of records, and the idea was that was sort of proof of concept for Tony Khan, who I mentioned owns the Jaguars,
Right.
to create his own company called All Elite Wrestling. So that happened on September 1st, 2018. And on January 1st, 2019, they announced that Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks had just formed their brand new company with Tony Khan called All Elite Wrestling, which is where my buddies Jeff Jarrett, Jim Ross, and Tony Schiavone, that I'll do all their podcasts, they're all with AEW now. And I don't know without All In that AEW would even exist. So to know that I was even remotely involved in any of that. And then when Tony did the little kickoff announcement saying, hey, we're creating a new rival league and our top star is going to be Chris Jericho, that was a big surprise because he's a well-established name.
Yeah.
He wanted to host a rally outside of the Jaguar Stadium in Jacksonville in the parking lot. And he called me to host it and MC it. And I'm like, I'm a mortgage guy from Gunnersville. Why am I here? I'm like the
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Pulling pins on truth grenades. John from Brownsboro texted in. He says, somehow Dems blame Republicans for every shutdown. And when they are in power, they do everything they can to make it hurt the people the most. Just look at the list of what Obama deemed unessential when it shut down under his administration. Yes, you are correct, sir. Scott from Somerville says, why haven't Republicans done anything toward an annual budget? It's been over 20 years since we've had a real budget. Scott, you may have just missed that part of the conversation. I'm trying to see what time. No, actually, I think we talked about that right as you were texting, Scott. But did you catch the conversation there with Congressman Dale Strong? So the bottom line is this. The House Appropriations Committee, and my recollection is the majority of budgeting has to start in the House and then transmit to the Senate. And you would look at it and go, why don't they just email it over and be done? No, there's this process called transmittal, and it actually has to be carried across. But the truth is, they have done much of the heavy lifting to get a budget passed. They're also dealing with a lot of stuff that Democrats are obfuscating on and being dilatory over, and what other big words I can find to tell you they're jacked up and trying to slow things down. But the truth is, the House Appropriations Committee has passed all 12 of its subcommittee bills, because the way that works is the House Appropriations, each of the subcommittees has a piece of the budget if it's done right. They pass up their transportation, or they pass up, their military spending, or they pass up their housing and urban development. Anyway, all the pieces of the appropriations bills that are being combined get pushed forward and then transmitted over once they're passed on the House floor, and they have. 12 appropriations bills have all now been passed in the House. 3 of those, if I'm not mistaken, did I hear correctly, have already been passed in the Senate. So what we're looking at here is a series of things that still have to happen. That's why the Republicans are asking for this extension just to go through mid-November. They believe they'll have a budget ready by then. Democrats don't want that. The last thing Democrats want is any potential for Democrats or for Republicans to be able to say, see, we passed a budget. They don't want that. Plus, the Democrats want their slush fund. By the way, story came out on Fox News just in the last few minutes. Let's see what time it came out. Actually, it came out right at the last few hours. Okay, so the House Democrats tried to get on the floor of the House to pass their own version of a spending bill. Hey, guys, by the way, you're in the minority.
Can you just do that without it going through committee and all that?
They can try. House Democrats made a last-ditch effort, it says, to pass their own government funding proposal on Tuesday, which was quickly scuttled by the GOP. There's like that's political kabuki theater is all that is.
Yeah.
See, we told you, we tried, and they wouldn't let us have it. Well, that's because elections have consequences, and you're considered the checks my notes minority. Democrats pushing their short-term extension of the current federal funding levels, called a CR. but they also attached a host of what it says are left-wing policy writers. Deadline for the shutdown is looming tonight at midnight, I believe. But the Republican designated to run the floor for the day, Representative Morgan Griffith, ignored all the yells of Mr. Speaker, gavelled out the House's brief session without acknowledging them, and Democrats began to yell, "Shame on you," and he got up and left. Listen, I've seen this stuff at the state level. It's amazing what they will do that has no hope, so they can say, well, we tried. We put a bill out there. They just wouldn't listen to it because they're fascists and things and stuff and whatever.
So in the case that if, say we get ACR eventually passed and it extends to mid-November, but then the Republicans in the meantime actually come up with a budget through committee, when it comes to vote, is it going to be like 60 votes that's going to be needed to pass the budget, or is it going to be just simple majority when it's brought to the floor?
It's both. You got to have 60 votes to invoke cloture and stop debate. So that's called the procedural vote. So you can get to the vote on the final passage is a simple majority.
So what's the hope, even if they do pass a clean budget, that the Democrats are going to be able to invoke cloture?
Oh, they're going to have to know the vote count before they go to the floor. This is one of those you got to count noses. You got to literally know where you are before you get out there on the floor. Otherwise, you're wasting time.
I don't even have much hope that when we do pass a budget that we're going to get 60 votes to actually get to a vote.
And that's the thing. That's what they're trying to do right now. Otherwise, we'd have already passed it.
Yeah,
because we have what it takes for a simple majority right now. We can get that done. We just don't have the 60 in the Senate, and so that's the rules. And I don't fault adhering to rules. I'm glad to see that even when there's this much political animus, they still go by the rules. It's almost like saying, you may really be mad you're trying to get somewhere in a hurry, but you still got to obey the rules of the road, right? You got to obey the traffic laws. You can't run red lights and you do what you want to do. So that's what they're doing. They are abiding by the rules, but the rules do require 60 votes to invoke cloture and get past the procedural aspects so you can vote for a simple majority.
But this is when the pork gets in the bill to get some Democrats to come on board, and then it just gets worse. And that's
exactly right. This is where you're going to wind up seeing somebody who's a Democrat on the Eastern Coast is going to say, I got to have FEMA up and running. The storms are coming. My constituents are calling me day and night. You're going to have somebody else who says, my constituents are overrun. I'm in a purple district with illegal aliens, and I'm in a purple district, and I'm up for re-election. You can't do this thing anymore. I got to vote for the bill. And so you're going to wind up starting to see defections. And then all Republicans need is like 9 defections. If they get 9, we're done. I think Fetterman's already a defection.
Yeah, I think Fetterman's pretty safe in our camp. So there's one.
Yeah, I think Fetterman's there. I do believe he is. We got plenty of stuff to talk about. We're going to switch gears here in a minute. We're going to talk about this inciting violence thing a little bit more, just to cover down on a few things that have happened that I think are worthy of note. And then before the show's over, I look forward to talking about what I'm calling Trump world, because the world is having to react to Trump. It's pretty cool being the alpha dog on the block. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Of wrestling, but I got to do it and jumped at the chance.
That's what you are. You're the Forrest Gump of wrestling.
I am. You don't
even realize how much you've touched. You just keep on touching.
I guess. You got any Dr. Pepper around here?
Somewhere.
Right?
A box of chocolates.
Just want to say this. Megan is not Jenny. I just need to get that on the record. Nothing like Jenny or Jenny. But maybe that makes Cassio my Bubba.
That's what it is.
I like that.
It's got to be.
I like that.
So let me ask you, you went from podcasting, so-called accidentally.
Yeah.
That grew into more and more podcasting.
That's right.
That grew into success with launching other podcasts, then StarCast. And you've also, oh, by the way, had a gig on Vice TV.
Well, that was, again, wrestling related.
Sure.
But there's a fabulous show called Dark Side of the Ring.
Right.
And before it was launched, they invited Bruce and I into their studios in New York to do a screener of their very first episode, the pilot, you might call it, about Bruiser Brody. And we loved it. And so Bruce and Eric and everybody else I was working with, I sort of closed the gap and helped facilitate some of those guests. And I still do. If I have a number on someone they can't find, and just really believe in what Evan and Jason have been doing with that series. So during the pandemic, there was an appetite for more of that content. So they wanted to do something called Dark Side of the Ring Confidential, where they aired clips that had never been seen before, and we added some more context to the behind the scenes of the creation of that. So they asked us right in the middle of the pandemic to shoot this at the former ECW Arena in South Philadelphia. So Cassio and I jumped in my car and drove all the way up there because we didn't want to fly because this is the COVID era. So here we are slipping around in a car that doesn't have four-wheel drive, driving on iced over streets with really just sheets of ice, hoping, is that the Airbnb they put us up in? Because at the time, we're not even staying in hotels. It was really crazy, but we did it, and it was a blast. And yeah, I never imagined that I would be on television. Like, guys who look and sound like me are not supposed to be on television. But there I was, thankful for the opportunity.
Well, I mean, this has been a cool walk, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
And still is. I
Yes.
mean, and I don't know if it's been a walk or a run or both, but
At times, both.
yeah. But then you got a call in 2023,
Yes.
and you have now been inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah, in Waterloo, Iowa.
What the heck?
I can't believe it. Like, you know, they have an award there called the Gordon Soley Award, who's arguably the dean of professional wrestling, just one of the greatest voices and commentary professionals, play-by-play in the history of wrestling. So he was the first recipient, and the second recipient was what I consider the real voice of wrestling of my generation, Jim Ross.
Okay.
And when they had a committee and they voted on who should be the next to receive the award, they chose me. And at that point, I had never actually worked for a wrestling organization beyond my WWE Network TV show. And I kind of thought, are you sure? Like, there's so many other worthwhile and worthy individuals. But they asked, and I answered and said yes. And to my surprise, Bruce agreed to come in and give my induction speech and introduce me. And even more added pressure, I thought, hey, I'm the nobody. So at least we'll get it out of the way early, and then we can go to dinner. No, they wanted me to go last. And now it's like you have all this pressure of everyone looking at it. It's like, I'm not even supposed to be here.
And
like,
now for our keynote speaker.
Right. And I'm not even a wrestler. I've never taken a bump, as they call it in the wrestling ring. I shouldn't be up here. But I was very thankful and appreciative that last year I was able to nominate, and there was 100% unanimous votes for that Tony Schiavone.
How about that?
Went in the Hall of Fame, and that was his very first Hall of Fame. And he started broadcasting wrestling in '83.
Wow.
And to think I may have had a hand in nominating him to go into the Hall of Fame in 2024 was just surreal. So
You're just
very thankful.
you're just gumping again.
Gumping, man.
You're just gumping the entire
I'm
time.
dumping it. By the way, shout out to Waterloo, Iowa. It's the Thez and Tragos Hall of Fame, the Dan Gable Museum in Waterloo, Iowa. It's going down this July. I'll be there again. This year, Eric Bischoff's going in. So I'm pumped about that.
Is there a special jacket? Do you wear like a Ric Flair robe? What do you wear when you go to an award ceremony?
No,
like that?
I mean, I think they want you to wear a suit, but they do give you a cool plaque, and your name is displayed there in the museum. And I mean, just the idea that I'm in a professional wrestling Hall of Fame as the mortgage
That is
guy.
very
If
cool.
you could tell 7-year-old me that, it would blow his mind. It'd be the coolest thing.
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the Southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show does a whole lot of radio all over northern parts of Alabama, southern Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi. And then y'all, a ton of y'all are out there live streaming the show on a regular basis online. X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, our website, rightsidemedia.org, and then all y'all podcasters. Listen, here's the bottom line. Wherever it is y'all catch this show, we appreciate it, and we just want you to know that we can see it, and it means the world to us. You're the only reason why we do this. You're the only reason why I come in the studio, y'all. I could come in here just to hang out with JP, but then, then my wife would say, why are you just hanging out? What are you doing? So, no, she gets it. All right. Hey, I got to ask JP, I'm going to break the moment here a second.
Okay.
It just occurred to me. I think tomorrow is the 1 year anniversary of you being with Rightside. Am I right? Is that correct?
I think either this week or last week was the 1 year week. I don't know the exact date. I'd have to go back and see.
I think it was October 1st.
It may have been. I think it may have been the week of October 1st, though. So it may have been a couple of days earlier.
Well, I need you to hit like all the sound effects over there. Let's start with applause. We'll do that one. Give me a boom. Do that one. Give me an hallelujah. Do that one. JP's been with us for a year.
That is correct.
That is awesome. I feel like we ought to sing happy birthday or something.
Where's my 1 year anniversary cake? No,
I'm going to talk to Aunt Charlene. We got to have a 1 year anniversary cake.
Yeah.
All right. So I got to ask you, speaking of food, now that you've actually, like been away from mom's cooking for a while and everything else. I mean, you're a grown guy. You were in college before that and all that. But I got to ask, because you're not living in the Huntsville region where you can't just go by and scoop food out of the refrigerator. What food do you miss the most that you had at home that, as the bachelor guy now who lives down here working at Rightside, you're like, if only I had some of that?
Well, my mom makes, I know everybody says this, but I'm correct when I say this. My mom makes the best meatloaf ever. So I do. I think every year since I was like 13, my special food for my birthday has been my mom's meatloaf. So if I could have some mama's meatloaf a bit more frequently, I think I would take that. But other than that, I've kind of learned how to cook the food that I like my parents to cook on my own. So but yeah, if I could have my mom on standby to just make meatloaf, I think that would be preferable. But yeah.
Okay. Of course, your dad's a grill master also.
Oh yeah.
I mean, your dad's a grill master bar none.
Yes.
All right. So then one more question. What, in the absence of mom's meatloaf, what food have you become good at cooking yourself that is not just taken out of a frozen package?
I've learned how to cook a pretty good steak.
Really?
So, yeah, a decent steak.
I'm paying you too much. What do you get a steak?
I make a good Mexican chicken and rice, which is one of my favorite dishes. But other than that, it's pretty normal, like spaghetti and meatballs, that sort of stuff. But I've learned how to make a decent enough steak to where it's pretty edible. So.
Wow. Okay. I'll be over tomorrow. But I will go ahead and say, for all the audience to hear, as it occurs to me that you've been with us for a year, you've been a game changer.
I appreciate that.
No, I mean that. So it's just true. Y'all don't understand how much he does in the background. The digital footprint of what we do, the podcasting, the social media, the YouTubing, the editing of videos, the ability to teach me things like, Phil, you got to stitch a video. Well, first explain to me what that means. Has all been next level. We've never had it before until you came along. So thank you very much.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're glad you took the opportunity. Okay. Now, let's do some show. So the next piece I'm going to talk about here. Oh, by the way, I got to read a text. Jeff from Indiana says, happy anniversary, JP. On another note, how's Big Rig doing on his 1 year anniversary with his endeavors? I got to find out. I saw Big Rig's wife at church the other day, but I haven't seen him in a bit. But I checked out his website and his social media recently. And if you haven't seen it, it's kind of next level.
It is.
Like, if you remember Big Rig, you checked it out too?
I've seen it. Yeah, his YouTube page.
It's pretty legit.
Mm-hmm.
And what's kind of funny was, like, in studio, he was actually very quiet.
Yeah.
He's kind of shy.
Mm-hmm.
You could ask him an opinion. He'd go, oh, yeah. And that would be about the extent of it.
And he had a nice deep voice.
He had a nice deep voice, yeah. And he was a great guy, very personable, has a wonderful family. And then I went one day and I thought, let me see that thing he talks about that he works on all the time. And I went to his website and I saw a video of him just thrashing his guitar and then talking about it and then getting excited about it. And I thought, who is this person?
Yeah. Maybe he needs to come and do some guitar bumps.
I'm saying,
some
man.
live bumps.
You know what? That might be a thing. Yeah. But anyway, JP, good stuff, man. I got a new texter who has not told me who they are, and I'm not sure I want to read it yet. But I'll let JP scout that one for me and tell me whether it's readable.
You can read it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Tell us who you are and where you're from. It's 256 area code. It says, when you lose an election, logic dictates you move back to the center to get back those voters. This proves the Dems are not driven by logic, but bigotry and hate for whites and males and heterosexuals and patriots. I see what you're saying. So you're saying that if they were smart, like, I'll give him props. Clinton knew politics. And when Clinton lost a lot in the midterms, he came back to the center somewhat to try and find consensus because he wasn't going to get a thing done otherwise. I'm not advocating that for Republicans. I really want to be more conservative, and I love where we are right now. I think we're doing good things. But Democrats, they haven't got it figured out. Their whole plan right now is no Trump. That's their plan. What's the Democrats' agenda? No Trump. Okay. What are their policy goals? No Trump. That's all they've got right now. So they're not going to come to the center if it means anything but no Trump gets enacted. We'll see. Those of y'all that have Democrats in your elected leadership and the shutdown starts, make sure they hear from you. They should.
If you think about it, it's an easy platform, though. Whatever Trump does, call it racist and then do the opposite.
Which is exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I happen to have an article here from Daily Wire that I found compelling. Ben Shapiro wrote this piece, and it came out yesterday afternoon. I like the terminology. Now, Ben Shapiro is a wordsmith. He's like Charlie Kirk in that once he gets going, you can't hardly keep up. He's like, have you ever seen Robin Williams do live comedy?
Mm-hmm.
Just like improv. I mean,
Yeah.
the man's mind did things. You like, how's that happen? That's the way Ben Shapiro is with politics, in my opinion. And he also talks so fast you can't keep up sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds like he's on a twice speed of.
Oh yeah, like okay, no more caffeine for you. He said this. He said, since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I've been discussing the idea that the left has created, and here's his phrase, permission structures for violence. Great phrase. You're nodding your head. Have you seen this article already?
I've seen him talk about the permission structures, but yeah.
Yeah, what he's basically saying is that they are giving the violence in our society a structure within to be in which it's considered all right. They're giving them the permission structures. Here's the reason why if you'll get violent over this thing, it'll be okay. We're giving you the permission structures to work within. Here's his argument. He says, it goes like this. He said, if you make a point they disagree with, that's a denial of their identity. It's an act of implicit violence. And that act of implicit violence must be met then with actual violence. That's what they do. You don't like who I am. You're homophobic. That requires action. You don't like what I say. You're racist. That requires action. You're a fascist. We can't have fascists. Hitler was bad. I must take you out because you're like him. Well, they've been told that over and over again. So by creating this whole circular argument that nothing can be said that is not acceptable by their agenda unless if it is said, then it winds up getting labeled, and it gets labeled in such a way that creates the permission structure for violence. He said, you'll see Democrats using language like fascist with regard to Republicans on a routine basis. You'll see Democrats claiming day in and day out that there's brutal attacks on black people in the country, attacks that can only be presumably met with force, and then openly praising people who have used terrorism in the past. It's these arguments that create the permission structures for violence. And then he goes on to talk about why the worst among them, outside of elected officials, is the New York Times. And he's right. And he's nailed it. And I'm sick of it. Listen, I am on here avidly speaking and adamantly speaking and avariciously speaking on behalf of conservative principles, values, and policies. I will continue to do so. But I will never tell you that if they don't like our conservative principles and values and policies, that you're allowed to go out and commit acts of violence. You don't hear me calling them, now you'll hear me, I'll say jackassery, I'll say kakistocracy, we'll have a little tongue-in-cheek time when we talk about them. But we're never going to advocate on this show, and I don't know any conservatives who do.
There aren't any.
Yeah, I don't know any conservatives who do. In fact, I got a great article, and I mentioned it briefly in my monologue earlier, that you had Jessica Tarlov on The Five on Fox, who got out there and immediately wanted to say that the guy who shot up the church, the Mormon church in Michigan, which we now understand was basically a hatred of Mormonism, something to do with a previous girlfriend or something who was a Mormon that broke up with him. And so he, in his mental illness, he hated Mormons and he took it out on them. We don't know that he had a political agenda that we can see, but there is some indications that he may have been a registered Republican. So Jessica Tarlov immediately tried to say, well, he's a Trump supporter, and it fell flat really quick when Jesse Waters looked at her and said, We're not inciting people to go kill Mormons like you're inciting people to attack ICE. See, that's the difference. We're not out there calling for violence. Charlie Kirk was murdered, and I'm wondering how many riots did we have in the wake of that? That's right. Okay, I'm wondering, we had the shooting at the church, in the Catholic church in Minnesota, and I'm just questioning how many people went and set a building on fire because of it. Yeah. It's kind of like that, right? We don't do that on the right. Now, the first thing they'll say, and I said it yesterday, but the first thing they'll say is January 6th, insurrection. No. January 6th, there were aspects of what happened on January 6th that should never have happened, but it was never what the left made it out to be. Never. It did not fit the legal definition of insurrection. It did not meet the standards for the crimes that were being, the allegations that were being, the charges that were being brought, and the plea deals that were being forced. Due process was out the window. They wanted heads on a pole. That's all they wanted. They wanted pikes with heads, period. And they went after it, just like that. They were political theater targets. That being also said, there were aspects of it that were wrong. But if you look by and large across the landscape, those that do active violence, and by violence, I don't mean just against people. I'm talking about the destruction of property. I'm talking about the destruction of essential services of government. I'm talking about impeding the ability of citizens to have safety and security. And I'm talking about actual physical violence. If you have all those things, ask yourself, where have we seen that more, on the right or on the left? And it's the left, because the left is constantly inciting their own people to violence. I got a piece here that I pulled off of the Federalist. Gavin Newsom. By the way, I don't know who's handling his social media.
It's out of control.
It's way out of control. And I don't mean like, oh, that was stupid. I mean like, that was awful. You go look at Gavin Newsom's X page right now. I don't know who's running it, but I'm pretty sure he's got 12-year-olds that have the password authority, the administrative authority to do whatever they want to do. It's unbelievable the things coming out of that man's alleged official account. But the first thing that happens after Charlie Kirk being murdered is you start seeing things come out of Gavin Newsom's social media using words again like fascists, Nazis, and Hitler. And he most recently did it with Stephen Miller. All caps, Stephen Miller is a fascist. That was, 2 days ago. Newsom's team then doubled down on the rhetoric, saying they're calling out Trump and his authoritarian stooges for being fascists. And then he has this one. I saw it. It made me mad when I saw it. A lot of times I let these things roll. But I think that Gavin Newsom is supposed to bear a higher level of responsibility. So in all caps, talking about the current administration, it said, ding dongs in the White House. If you don't want us to call you a fascist, stop doing fascist things, in all caps. That's from the governor of California's X account. And it's absolutely awful, but it also creates that permission structure that Ben Shapiro was talking about. The article here on the Federalist says such language implicitly justifies resistance by any means necessary. Since no free person would want to live under a fascist dictatorship, the logic goes then, if Trump and his administration are legitimate fascists, the same people who slaughtered and oppressed millions in World War II, then violence against them is not merely permissible, it's actually noble. That's what they're creating with their rhetoric. And sooner or later, they've got to figure it out. We're going to take a break right now. We will take that break. We'll come right back, heading towards the top of the hour, moving towards hour number 3. Yeah, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Absolutely very cool. All right, so you got this crazy life. Did you ever imagine this stuff? I mean, you've definitely got two sides to your professional life. Both of them are still gainful and still going. Yeah. And both of them are still time takers, and both of them you still have people that work for you here, there, and the other, and you're running and gunning. Did you ever imagine? I mean, where'd you come from? Where did Conrad Thompson, was he come out of the womb as an entrepreneur, or did something happen? What got you to the point that you are able to step into entrepreneurship with this kind of brash boldness that you seem to project right now?
Well, that's an interesting question. First of all, I appreciate that. I like brash boldness. If that's the way people describe me, that
Let me
would
write
be
that
cool,
down for you.
right?
Brash
Yeah,
and bold.
I like
Right.
it. No, my grandfather, I guess maybe this is part of it. He was in the Amway business and did really well.
Oh, wow.
I never even studied Amway, but I guess people get impressed when I say he was double diamond. I guess that's a thing. I don't know. But I guess he did pretty well at that. And then, unfortunately, he and my grandmother got divorced, and things were never the same for either of them after that. But my mom partnered with my grandmother, and they started a domiciliary. You and I, being country folks, might call it an old folks home, where they're not quite ready to go to, full-time care like a nursing home, but they do need somebody to just help them around the house and that sort of thing. So they created that. And then my dad he worked at the prison system. He was a security guard or a prison guard, and he would, do drug tests and whatever other tasks they had him handle at the prison there. But that wasn't enough. They needed more income. So Dad started selling insurance part-time, and then he started selling vacuum cleaners part-time, and that proved to be more lucrative. And eventually my dad was earning far more money selling vacuum cleaners in the evenings and on weekends than he was working for the state as a security guard at the prison. So he had an opportunity to have his own territory, and eventually he jumped at it. So we went from Prattville, Alabama, a suburb of Montgomery, up to Gunnersville, and that's where I graduated high school. But I saw my parents' life change from where, mom was telling me, don't answer the phone, that's grown folks' business. Those are bill collectors.
Yeah.
And I learned things like if you mail the cable bill to the power company and the power bill to the cable company, it'll buy you a few more days. So I grew up with that. And I remember wanting to be able to do better and provide more for my mom. And so when I saw that become a realization, now we're taking fancy trips to Cancun and we have a 2-story house and an in-ground pool and mom's driving a Lincoln. I remember what that felt like. So I just decided right then, hey, I'm going to be in sales. I want to do sales.
How about that?
So when I was a sophomore at Gunnersville High School, I got as silly as this sentence sounds, a full ride at Sneed. But Sneed State Community College had a program called the Ambassador Program. And if you were chosen to be one of the Marshall County ambassadors through a series of testing and interviews and things like that, they would allow you to go to Sneed. So I did that. And in 2000, Van Scott, who was my business professor, and I had so many classes with him, he said something along the lines of, now, folks, if you keep your nose clean and you keep your head down, some of you in this room could earn up to $35,000 a year.
Which sounded like money.
But I reached in my book bag at the end of class, and I realized here we are in September, and my year to date is like $60,000.
There you go.
So I came to Van after the room had cleared out, and I said, hey, I think this was my last class. And he says, are you dropping the class? Because I'd had several with Mr. Scott. And I said, no, I think I'm dropping school. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you said if I keep my head down and I keep my nose clean, I could earn $35,000 a year, but here's my paycheck stub. And he looks at it, and he looked up at me and said, son, you make more than me. Why are you here? And patted me on the arm, and that was it. I never went back.
How about that?
And before I knew it, I moved to Huntsville because I wanted to be where the people were. If you're in a sales job, you need to go where the people are.
Yeah.
So living in Gunnersville, 6,000 people at the time or whatever it is, I went to Huntsville, rented an apartment, and 11 months later, I bought a house, and mortgages, here we come.
Well, so looking back to your family, I mean, I heard a couple things in there. I heard work ethic.
Oh, yeah.
I heard my pastor said just last Sunday, actually. He said, if we don't quit, we win.
That's right.
And there was a bit of that mixed in there.
Oh, yeah.
More than work ethic, it sounded like there was also a tenacious effort to not quit.
Absolutely. My dad is my hero, and he instilled a great work ethic in me. He instilled a positive mental attitude. I feel bad for folks who grew up in a household that just breeds negativity. That's not the household I grew up in.
Yeah.
My parents were just drilling into me that I could do anything I wanted. My mom painted a vision for me that one day I'd have Rolls Royces and live behind gates and all this crazy stuff. And then later, as a teenager, Ric Flair did promos on TBS that I was watching on a VHS tape. I'm watching it in 97, but he said it in 87 that he wanted to live in the biggest house on the biggest hill on the big side of town. And he's got a limousine a mile long and blah, blah, blah. So he was talking about swag, as the kids would say.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Man, just making common sense like a superpower. Got a short segment here because I did run long on my last one. I got to tell you, though, with regards to this this insightful rhetoric, and by the way, if you missed my my monologue earlier in the show, it is worth catching again. I told the story of the Texas Rangers where the motto "One Riot, One Ranger" comes from. You know what? Let me chase a rabbit. I'm going to do this. Mr. President, I would like a moment of personal privilege.
Permission granted.
Thank you. So if you haven't heard the story, now I got to tell the story again. All right. So the One Riot, One Ranger. There's a story of the Texas Rangers who have an amazing history. In 1890, and I believe it was Galveston, the community was facing all kinds of mob action. There was apparently an illicit prize fight, which was, take that for what it's worth, but it was causing all kinds of mayhem. There were crowds that were gathering. There was drunken brawls. There were things that are happening in the streets that people didn't feel safe and they didn't know what to do about it. And this mob action was going on in such a way that local leadership and law enforcement couldn't handle it. And so they called for the Texas Rangers. This is based in fact, Ranger Captain William McDonald, already a legend in the Rangers. He shows up, he gets off the train in 1890, and the town folk looked at him and they said, "Where's the rest of your Rangers?" His first response was, "Hell, ain't I enough?" And he walked on into town. And as the story goes, he walked on into town. He found the ringleader of the mob, pistol whipped him, toted him back to the train, and then told the town's leaders, "One riot, one ranger." And the riot dissipated. The mayhem was gone because he went right to the root of it and he got it. So literally one of the mantras or mottos of the Texas Rangers to this day is "One riot, one ranger." So much so that when Walker, Texas Ranger with Chuck Norris became a series, which was, a huge series for a while, the pilot episode was called "One Riot, One Ranger." The statue I'm trying to think where it was. Was it Austin, Texas? The statue of the Texas Ranger that was called the One Riot, One Ranger statue in the Summer of Love 2020, in all the purge of statues and changing of names and doing away with anything, was taken down because it was deemed to have racial animus attached to it. Why? It was a law enforcement memorial. It was a memorial to all things that Texas should be standing for. And they took that statue down and it has not been put back up since. One Riot, One Ranger. Great story. Look it up. It's good stuff. We'll come back with more on the inciting of violence, but I just thought that one was worth telling for a minute because I have the microphone and I can. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back.
Songs today, way back then. And as a 15, 16-year-old, it was like, yeah, that all sounds pretty good. I think I'd like that. And I felt like sales was maybe my ticket there. But I grew up selling, I thought I would sell insurance or I would sell vacuum cleaners like my dad. But then a neighbor next door to our suite in Huntsville at the office suggested that I come sit with him one day, and he taught me about mortgages. And I'm 19 at the time.
How about that?
I don't even know that I don't know how to spell mortgage. I certainly don't know there's two G's in it. I would have never guessed that. But I remember looking at it and saying, okay, Jeff, I get we're saying their payment goes from $1,300 to $900. But if their payment goes down $400, how do we make money? Because as a salesperson, I was used to think of like the car scenario. If you go buy a new car, you're going to get a new payment. So I'm just thinking, wait a minute, we're not charging them more, we're charging them less. Where's the margin for us? I couldn't wrap my head around it. But once I realized, oh no, it's based on the loan value. So you're making your commission on their $300,000 mortgage. Well, as a guy who had been thinking about selling $1,500 vacuum cleaners and making a commission on that, it was like, oh, this could be quite lucrative. So I went and told Dad, hey, Dad, I think I'm going to quit and try this. And Dad and I really came to an impasse because he felt like, hey, I'm only building an outfit here in Huntsville for you to run it. I still had one in
so
Albertville.
That was Dad's company you were looking at.
Yeah, at that point, Dad had an office in Gadsden.
Wow.
He had one in Albertville. He had one in Huntsville. And I was kind of running the Huntsville one, but I was like, Dad, this is another level. So Dad didn't see it. And Dad thought, it was not going to be nearly as lucrative as it was, but it afforded me the opportunity to buy my first house and buy my first Rolex. And when I was a kid, I had to have an Escalade, all that silly stuff. So about a year later, Dad was like, so how do you make money with this? So eventually I got Mom in, I got Dad in, I got my cousins in, I got my uncle in, and I started First Family Mortgage because it really was everybody, my sister's here, everybody's here. So it was a fun way to sort of share that with my parents. I mean, their lifelong dream had always been to own a place in Panama City. And as I'm sitting here with you today, I can say they did it. And it was because of the mortgage business. So it's all been a positive, really fun story, man.
How about that? That is way cool. Well, listen, so all these different parts of your life.
Yeah.
So what's your mode? I mean, do you sleep late? Do you get up early? Are you the guy who's like already scheming before the crack of dawn, or are you the guy who works to the wee hours of the night and then sleeps till 10? What's your mode? I mean, how do you structure your day to get all this done?
Well, my wife decided a couple of years ago she wanted to get into fitness, so she's training for competitions all the time.
Wow.
So I went from being the first person up to now she is. She's up at 3:30 in the morning and at the gym by 4.
No kidding.
As you may have been able to tell, I am not there at 4 in the morning. I am still asleep. But no, I'm up every day before 7 and getting after it. I always usually try to have an 8 a.m. appointment somewhere. Today it was about our big convention in Dallas. But at 9 o'clock, I did a podcast from 9 to 11. I jumped in my car, came straight here to you.
Yeah.
I've guessed that our show would be about 90 minutes. So I have a 1:30 as soon as this finishes for my ride back. And then I've got a 2:30 right behind that. And then I'll pick up a professional wrestler flying in from Mexico at the Huntsville International Airport tonight at 6:45. And I'll take him to dinner and make sure he's situated, and then take him to have some cervezas. And then we'll bring him back to the house and introduce him to the wife before she goes to bed. And we'll do it again tomorrow.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Every single day from the minute I wake up until I go to bed, I'm doing something that makes money or is fun, or else I'm not doing it. But those are my two prerequisites. I want to have fun or make money. And if I can do both, I'm doing a lot of it.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that? All right. Let me ask you this. Let's get into other stuff. So
Sure.
you did, Mrs. Thompson used to be a Flair.
Yes.
All right. You met Ric Flair. You told me the story. Y'all were drinking buddies and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then you started doing a podcast together. So I'm sure that not only did you get to know him, but then you really got to work with him as well to some
Yes.
degree. So he's one of the legends of the world of pro wrestling.
Yes.
What's your craziest Ric Flair story?
None that we can tell on a fine podcast like this. But what you see is what you get with Ric Flair. His real name is Richard Fleer,
Right.
but I don't think he can differentiate between the two even now. I mean, it's wild, the boldness and the brashness, as you would say, that people have. I remember walking through the Atlanta airport with him once, and a guy just pops up out of nowhere and puts his cheek against his as we're walking through the concourse, and holds his phone up. Like people are taking selfies with their cheek against him. Like not even speaking to him like he's a human being, like it's a statue somewhere. It's just surreal. But I've seen a lot of that. And sometimes depending on the mood he's in, it's less than favorable for them. But he's always got plenty of time. If you're a veteran, if you're a child, if you're a special needs individual, or if you're an attractive woman, you got a shot at having a good conversation with him. If you look like me or Butters, you probably need to keep it moving.
I did see, though, some interview with you where you said that you found one of Ric Flair's robes on an online auction or something like that.
Oh, yeah. So you saw.
And you got it.
Yes. I've had several robes through the years. I was collecting these robes before I knew Rick,
No
but I
kidding.
knew they were investment vehicles. Let me explain. If you're not familiar with pro wrestling, he used to come to the ring in something that looks like Elvis Presley or Liberace would wear it.
More like Liberace, I would
There
say,
you go.
yeah.
But you remember like the jumpsuits that
Oh, yeah.
Elvis wore with all
Oh,
the
yeah.
sequins everywhere and the crazy designs. Well, Flair did that, and he thought it was a big part of the presentation, and that actually went back to Gorgeous George. Gorgeous George is kind of the innovator of that.
Yeah.
And even Muhammad Ali would say he borrowed from Gorgeous George's rap. It was all just about promotion. So Flair became, I guess, the second nature boy behind Buddy Rogers, and started putting that, on some sequins on a robe, and they got more ornate and more fancy. But then one day I'm just scrolling. I'm a sports collector, so I have like an old pair of Ali's trunks and Tyson trunks, and I've got Joe Montana's jersey and just lots of silly stuff like that. But I thought from a wrestling fandom standpoint, like maybe the coolest thing you could own would be a Ric Flair robe. So I'm scrolling eBay and I found one and I couldn't believe it.
And it was legit.
It's legit. I knew it was legit. So I negotiated with the guy for the course of maybe 3 months. And then I bought a robe from him. And then when he got another one, he said, "Hey, do you want to buy this one?" Well, I negotiated and I got an even better deal. So I bought that one. So through the years, I've probably had 12 different ones, but there was one that always eluded me. One that was my really first impression of Rick is when he first came to the WWF in 1991. He showed up in a black robe with white feathers and it had silver butterflies on it. And it was on the cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It was on the cover of the WWF magazine. And he wore it to the ring at the Royal Rumble in 1992.
Yeah. And, oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday, because it's always about the food. We didn't get to the sound effect on Meatloaf Monday. Should we play it? I mean, no, we don't.
We actually did hear the sound effect because
You did?
I manually played it without the
How do
stream
you-
deck. So
You worked some hoodoo over there to make sure the Meatloaf sound effect got played.
I did make sure the Meatloaf sound effect got played yesterday. Yeah.
If y'all knew how many buttons are on his side of the studio right now,
Yeah.
I like to say I swear he can launch nuclear missiles from there.
There probably is a nuclear missile button somewhere buried over there.
Hey, so I'm going to finish up this this thing about the inciting of violence. That's what I've got this whole dipper about. The inciting of violence. John Fetterman, who we played a clip yesterday. I'll be honest with you. More and more, I'm impressed with that guy's ability to have social discourse. I walked past his office up in D.C. Just a couple weeks ago. And he has a big rainbow flag out front. You know, it's there's going to be a number of things we don't agree on. But what I have discovered by just from afar, but what I've just gleaned from watching him is he means it when he says he is not going to be the guy. He's just not going to be the guy who is going to issue all kinds of hateful rhetoric in order to get his way. That's not his style. He thinks it's dangerous and it shouldn't happen. In fact, did you pull up that tweet? Did you find it? Can you screenshot it?
Yes.
If you can put on the screen while I'm talking about it, and for the live streamers, in a recent post on his X account, Fetterman included a screenshot of an Axios article. I'm pulling this off of Breitbart. I got this one right here in my calloused former paratrooper hands. He was talking about, there's a study that came out that says that left-wing terrorism is at an all-time high, 30-year high. This is Fetterman's words. Go ahead and put it up. Unchecked extreme rhetoric like labels as Hitler or fascist will foment more extreme outcomes. Political violence is always wrong. No exceptions. We must turn the temperature down. That's U.S. Senator John Fetterman posting on X his thoughts about basically what's happening mostly from his party. And he cited an Axios article. Phil, are you citing Axios? I am. I will go these places so you don't have to. But he cited an Axios article, which then cited research from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the CSIS. And it says that during the first 6 months of 2025, far-right violence has been, which it says has been usually more frequent, has decreased significantly. Huh, you think? It says the CSIS compiled and analyzed a data set of 750 domestic attacks and plots that occurred between January 1st of 94 and July 4th of 2025, and found that out of those attacks that occurred just since 2016, that left-wing extremists were responsible for more than 40 of the attacks, while right-wing extremists were responsible for 152 attacks over the same period. Okay, I don't know about that. I'd like to see more details. But the data shows that it is significantly swung in the other direction. And that is a very telling event. I don't know what changed. I mean, I've told you before that I feel like I've always argued with the idea that the right wing is the violent party because they have the guns. I don't see that. Now, I won't try to deny that there's not violence from the right as well. We have our fringe elements as much as they have their fringe elements. I just feel like they give power to their fringe elements.
Yes. They gave them the foothold and the permission.
They do. The permission structures.
They gave them the permission to act it out. You know, we're not talking to our fringe element about, you know, QAnon or, you know, permission to go do crazy stuff. You know, like we're trying to actually promote Christian values. And it's, Yeah, I think Jesse Waters nailed it on the head. You don't see us advocating for violence. If somebody on the right wing decided the best way to go about fixing this was with arms, we disavow that. And
Yeah.
you're not part of our, because I personally identify as a Christian above a Republican. So it's like, if you're doing that, you're not on my side. Our side is pushing the good and, the beauty of life. And so that's the difference. There's no ideological motive being promoted from the Republican Party like there is from the Democratic Party.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we're seeing it close to home. I can't use the language in this article because we would get an FCC fine. But article on 1819 News talks about the ways they're being attacked because they are standing for conservative values in their reporting. There's a political consultant and a Black Lives Matter activist, a guy named Carlos Chavez Jr. Carlos Chavez Jr. Is just absolutely off the chain. He's now relocated to Colorado, but he was here in Alabama. He was all in the Birmingham scene. Carlos Chavez Jr. took issue with a recent 1819 News report about Birmingham's Carver High teacher, Jasmine Faith Clisby. She's the one, by the way, who is constantly haranguing like Church of the Highlands and Briarwood Church for daring to like anything Charlie Kirk did. Okay. Carlos Chavez Jr. Sends this email to one of our friends, April Marie Fogel at 1819, saying, "What a dumb blankety blank you are to write an entire article about a woman. You have nothing better to do, you low-life scum, blank Charlie Kirk. I'm personally paying for a lawyer for the young lady. We're going to sue 1819 News. You can't defame someone, you dumb blankety blank." That's the kind of guy who has been an activist in the left-wing side of social discourse in our own state. That's the way he reacts to things. That right there has got to be denounced. I wonder, would Liberal Mayor Randall Woodfin, mayor of Birmingham, would he denounce that? I wonder, would Liberal Mayor Stephen Reed of Montgomery, would he denounce that? I wonder if the Liberal Mayor of Nashville or Memphis would denounce that. And the point is, you will find them going silent when these things happen. And that's almost as galling as their words. Because when you see something wrong, you should know that it's wrong, whether it's on your side or not. If JP and I went to a Republican Party dinner and somebody there was calling for violence, we would not condone it, and we would be also telling them to sit down and shut up. And the left has got to start telling their own people to sit down and shut up, because all they're doing is making it worse. And it shouldn't have to be us calling their people out. They can do it. Because if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi and Ilhan Omar and AOC and Bernie Sanders, if they would spend a few minutes of their time saying, "Stop that, you're not helping the cause at all. We stand for these things, but we don't do it that way. It's okay to stand for these things without doing it that way. You are not accepted in our ring right now because that's the way you're going to act. You're not welcome here. Go do your own thing, but don't do it on our dime. You don't stand for what we stand for." If they would do that, I guarantee you that a lot of the violence would just immediately begin to back down. But they've got to quit inciting the violence. That's what they do. That's what they do. Oh, good. Shag Nasty the Atheist just checked it in. What did he say? Have you seen it yet? Let's see. We got a meme. We got a post. We got a something. Shag Nasty. I'm not sure what he's telling me.
It's a tweet, and the first person says, "What thing from your teenage years do you think should make a comeback?" And then the person replied to it and said, "The prevailing belief that Nazis are bad."
Yeah, that would be good. And also that Nazis were in World War II. And that the U.S. government is not Nazis. So, Shag, if that's what you're saying to us, we agree. If what you're saying to us is that Nazis are bad and we need to teach people that the use of the word constantly as a way of trying to argue your points of policy, if that's what you want to do, you're never going to win an argument here. That's low-level tabloid work right there. Joe in Tennessee says, "I think if the left doesn't like the description that we give them, then they don't need to fit the definition of that description, because stupid is as stupid does." Joe C. in Tennessee. Scott from Decatur says, "Phil, the left will not change their speech until they personally feel a consequence and the inside of a cell." Some of them need to feel the inside of a cell. If you burn a city block or you impede a police effort, a law enforcement effort, you deserve to be detained for it. If you just have an opinion, then at the very least, just don't let your opinion be one that is, filled with physical violence. And then Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, I think the Democrats live in a world of mirrors. They see themselves and think they're looking at us when they claim something that we are doing what they are. Point taken. All right, we're taking a break. We'll come right back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all be right back.
Hardcore wrestling fans would say that's the greatest Rumble of all time. It had the most legends. The winner became the champion, and Flair became the first guy to ever win the WWF title and the NWA title. It was a big deal. It would be like if all of a sudden, Babe Ruth, wasn't with the Yankees and now he's with the Red Sox, sort of thing. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. And that robe nobody could find for years and years and years.
Had Rick sold it? Had it been stolen?
Nobody knew.
Oh, wow.
Now, Flair had a bunch of robes stolen from locker rooms and dressing rooms and airports. All he knew, and even ex-wives. But he did say, hey, I don't know where it is, so it's clearly stolen because I didn't sell it. Well, it turns out the story we've heard is he forgot after a Monday Nitro in 1995 and left it hanging in the closet in Johnson City, Tennessee at a Holiday Inn. And they didn't know how to get a hold of him because in 1995, it's not like everybody had cell phones like they do now.
Right.
So somebody just kept it. Well, while they were filming Most Wanted Treasures for A&E, which is a WWE program, they found it. Well, it turns out the guy who wound up seeing the auction on eBay, he actually had a program set up to track when anything Ric Flair related was listed, because he had found some interesting things through the years that way.
So the dude had his own algorithm for searching Ric Flair stuff.
He did. Wow. And he found this robe before anybody, and he bought it dirt cheap relative to its value. But I knew the guy because this little circle of high-end wrestling collectors is pretty small. There's probably 6 major ones. There's a lot of others on the periphery.
Are you one of the 6?
I used to be. I'm not as active in it as I was. I found that I've gotten close enough now that my fandom has changed a little bit. I just view it differently and I appreciate it differently. That's not to say I still don't have a pretty damn impressive collection. I do. But I'm just saying I'm no longer actively looking for the next thing, if that makes sense. Yeah. But there's still a few things out there that, boy, if I could find that. But it's less about what else can I add to the collection and more about what are my grail pieces, if that makes sense.
Right.
Well, for years and years, I'd called out on podcasts because I would even watch along. I think in 2022, I watched, maybe it was before that, but on an anniversary date, I watched with Ric Flair that Royal Rumble back again. And I said into the microphone, hey, if anybody can find that, I'd be glad to get you a brand new Forerunner. I mean, like my DMs are open. Here's my email address. Anytime that robe came up, I threw it out there. Well, this fellow knew, because we had done robe deals together, that I was interested. So he reached out to me and we worked a deal out and we sort of recreated it for the TV show. That's not exactly how it happened, but it's pretty close. But either way, he got a wire, which was almost as much as I spent for my first house. And now I have the robe.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Good
but
Lord.
There's only a handful of things that I really, really wanted. And I had already achieved accidentally. My first wrestling collectible was the big gold belt. And it's the one that Ric Flair debuted on Valentine's Day, 1986, but they used it all the way through the end of WCW in 2001. So the same belt that he wore and Dusty Rhodes wore and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Sting is the same belt that like Hulk Hogan with the NWO played air guitar with on Nitro and Goldberg beat him. And the idea that I was able to find that, I thought, man, this would be like finding, like the Super Bowl trophy, they make a new one every year. This is like the Stanley Cup.
Wait, I'm taking it back. They make a new one every year?
Well, yeah. If you go to Robert Kraft's office, I'm sure he's got a bunch of those trophies.
He's still got his trophy. Yeah.
Yes. But I'm saying this one, they didn't make a bunch of copies of. Like, that was the NWA belt. In the WWF, like, they just make like 5 or 6 a year. So there's just several of them that have this design. But this particular belt was 3 pieces of metal and 1 strip of leather, and it was used from 86 to 2001. So when I found that, I was like, this is like the coolest collectible ever. The second coolest would be if I could find Ric Flair's 1992 Royal Rumble robe. And when I did, I was like, oh, I got to put them together.
Okay, so, but now I got to chase this rabbit then real quick. 2 questions. What is the most coveted piece of your personal collection of any kind of sports? Because I heard you say you're a big sports collector in general. And what is the one thing that's still out there that by God, you haven't found it yet, but you're gonna.
That's easy. The big gold belt's number one, and
All right.
that's not close. I've been offered 6 figures for
Is
it
it hanging on a
multiple
wall
times.
in a shadow box, or is it locked in a safe deposit box?
WWE has it right now. They just had
No kidding.
WrestleMania, and they wanted to display it. They put Lex Luger in the Hall of Fame finally, and that's a belt that he famously beat on the 100th Nitro.
You are Forrest Gump.
Yeah,
This is crazy.
So he called, the archivist from WWE called and said, "Can I borrow the belt?" And I said, "Absolutely. We've done it a dozen times before."
Yeah.
So they have it right now, so it's on loan.
Okay.
But normally, yeah, it's at my house.
So what have you not found? What is the
one I
thing?
haven't
What is the
found-
thing that if you could track it down?
The WrestleMania 4 or 5 or 6 Winged Eagle Championship, the world title that was worn by Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, or the Macho Man. The reason I'm specific about those 3 is they were dual.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. I mean, just like, man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Got to get some text messages. So first of all, the lovely Charlene just texted in, and she said with regards to the left-wing violence, she says they cater to their leftist wing of their party because they're afraid of them. I think that's reasonable. I think she's nailing it. I'm not just saying that because she's my wife. She's very politically astute. But I think she's right. Part of it is they are scared to death of what the left will do if they don't get their way. The far left.
And I would say not just scared of them. I think that is true, but also I think they know the most inflammatory and extreme hyperbolic language is going to get them the most views and going to help them politically. And then they can go and eat at their nice restaurants, go to their cozy homes, and they don't have to deal with the consequences of their rhetoric.
Yeah, great.
So that's like they're trying to get political points. And as the left is getting more radical, they realize the only way to stay politically relevant is to also become radical, even though I guarantee you Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries don't actually believe like 80% of the stuff they say. They just know it's going to help them politically. And like I said, they don't have to deal with the consequences. But Charlie Kirk, on the other hand, paid for it with his life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Wow. Yeah. Tim from Huntsville, Alabama says, Colonel Phil, I get scared with left wing going so violent. Your thoughts on stopping it? Tim in Huntsville, love your show. And Jeffro. Tim, we've been talking about it for a while now. I think one of the first things we have to do is we have to continually draw attention to it and not let it be acceptable. We cannot ever allow ourselves to become numb to the rhetoric that the left is using and the violence it's promoting. The other piece of this is, and it didn't happen in the Biden administration, the Summer of Love happened, whole city blocks burned down, nobody on the left got punished. Nobody. There was no accountability whatsoever. Meanwhile, the January 6th Commission ruined hundreds of people's lives because of what they said was an insurrection. So you can burn down city blocks. 26 people nationwide died in those riots, but nothing happens to help the Jan 6 for folks. So anyway, what I'm saying there is we have got to have accountability. If the left is going to commit violence, if they're going to have riots in Portland, if they're going to have shootings at an ICE facility in Dallas, if they're going to have, somebody invoking, mayhem and gluing themselves to a street to impede traffic and protest, left-wing garbage, then the reality is they need to face the consequences of their own actions, because you can't have a civil and ordered society without accountability. You just can't. And I'm not talking about being overly punitive. I'm just talking about reasonably assessing the situation, bringing the necessary charges, and holding people accountable. So that's what I would say. And then the other thing is, don't live scared. Not at all. Don't live scared. We can't do it. We can't let them make us live scared. Sean from Elkmont says, even when the left does denounce something, it's usually lukewarm, followed by a but or orange man bad.
exactly.
That's true.
All the left, when they say it's tragic what happened to Charlie Kirk, but he was a racist, he was a homophobe, he was like, they can't just say it. They have to always couch their terms with, but he wasn't a great guy. It's like you're not like you're making it worse.
I heard somebody say once, and I thought, what a brilliant statement. It says, if your apology is followed by a but, it wasn't really an apology.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. Think about that. Brad from Madison says, the politicians on the left will continue to incite violence through their name calling other language until someone's willing to charge them with the crime of inciting violence. Well, you have to have a determined nexus. I'm talking about what we believe we can see. I'm talking about what common sense says. There's a difference between that and what is legally actionable. So you have to have a nexus tied from the statement to the action. Now, we all believe that what we're seeing is a constant framework, what Ben Shapiro called a permissive structure. But what I would say too, in terms of being actionable as to rhetoric, is the rhetoric has to be something that you can see. Like, for instance, let's say that a politician stands in the middle of a crowd and yells, "Get them, do it, burn it down." And then the mob sees the leader saying that and runs and burns it down. I think you're abusing your position. You incite violence, you can do it. Yeah, but you have an Ilhan Omar giving a stupid podcast where she uses words like Nazi and fascist, and then somebody does something in Dallas when she was over in New York. Hard to have the actual actionable nexus, legally speaking. Joe in Tennessee says Antifa is the Democrat Hamas. Wow, that's good. I like that. Give him some applause. I like that. That was good. John from Harvest says, it's always good to hear from Dale Strong. I knew him back when he was my county commissioner. When I was a scout leader, I saw where he always did well for the community. Phil, I was just curious if you heard anything about Andrew Sneed, who's running against him for 5th District as a Democrat. I have not, and I hold out no hope for an Andrew Sneed. I think the Andrew Sneed campaign is just about already over. Just saying. By the way, just got a long text from our one of our favorite former congressmen, Mo Brooks. We haven't had Mo on in a long time. We got to have Mo on sometime soon. With regards to the spending bill, and do I have time? How much time do I have?
Got about 2 minutes.
Okay. He said there's a sordid and obvious reason why Congress does not pass appropriations bills on time. It's complicated, but generally speaking, this is Congressman Mo Brooks. He says it's all tied to demand for campaign contributions from special interests that want special things that benefit them, but which are unpopular and would never pass in a standalone bill. Aha. He says, so you have to attach those bad things to the must-pass bills. So you must create a setting when we must pass certain bills, and then bad things will also pass. He said, so you kill the appropriations bills, you delay matters to the New Year's or Christmas when many would vote for anything just to be able to go home. You add public anger directed at congressmen and senators by threatened government shutdowns, and then you create the must-pass bill under stressful circumstances wherein more elected officials will vote for it almost no matter what's in it. He said, so you spring 1,000-plus page bill right before the holidays, replete with bad things, special interests pay big money, and it's voted on with insufficient time to read it. And then the bill passes. And then he says, in order to orchestrate the above, the first thing you do is you make sure no appropriations bills get passed by September 30th. He says the above has happened to almost every appropriations bill since 2010. And special interests pay big money campaign contributions. The money flows. I should add, though, that both parties do this. And that's why we're $37 trillion in debt. That's the voice of experience right there. And
that it is.
That is the voice of experience. I would love to believe it's not that jaded, but I think the voice of experience just spoke. And so there you have it. All right, we're about to take a break right now. We will come back and jump on something I just saw. We're gonna call an audible, which is almost a pun when you consider that I'm going to talk about something that Coach Tupperwood has said. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
It was nickel and gold, starting at WrestleMania 6. Every belt after that and through WrestleMania 14 was like all gold. But the look of that one, because that's when I really fell in love, was WrestleMania 5. The first WrestleMania I saw was on a double tape VHS at my grandfather's house. Once upon a time, we used to go to like movie gallery. Remember those days?
Man, yeah.
And so that's what my parents did. They were like, hey, this is a double tape set. This will be a heck of a babysitter for our 7-year-old annoying son. So I got to watch WrestleMania 4 and fell in love with pro wrestling. I had never seen it before. I was a G.I. Joe He-Man guy. So now to be able to see this was like, this is like a real life cartoon. I'm in. So if I could have the world title that one of those guys held when I first fell in love with wrestling, that would be it. But I've never found one person who has one or can even say they've seen it. So it's still out there somewhere, but I'll find it eventually. Time's on my side.
Can you find me the glasses that Roddy Piper wore in the movie They're Here, and that shows him where the aliens
They
are?
live.
They live. That's
Yes.
right. They live.
I might
sorry.
be able to find that. No, seriously, there is a niche collector. I know 2 people who would know where that is.
No kidding.
Yeah. The Underground Railroad of wrestling collectibles. Here I am as the Forrest Gump of that too.
All right, let me ask you a couple quick questions about your knowledge of the wrestling industry, shall we say?
Sure.
Massive stage events. Has there ever been a time, because I like we had the thing with John Cena just had the big event, right?
Yep. WrestleMania.
It's like his closing, like the closure of his career, correct?
He's announced this is his farewell tour. His last day in the professional wrestling business will be December 31st, 2025.
What I've seen as a casual observer, and that's where I am. I'm a casual observer. But what I've seen as a casual observer is they weave storylines, and the storylines have sometimes a beginning and an end, but at the very least, the fans know what the storyline is, or they're given the trailer that tells them why there may be more coming.
Yes.
That being said, is there ever been, in your study of the history, has there been one where like they never got closure? Like something happened and that character, if you will, never got the actual. All right, so what would you bring closure to if you could? Like I know you organize events. I know you've been a part of like Ric Flair's final.
Yes.
And you've seen some other big events and you've got StarCast and other things you work with. Event-wise, if you could bring closure in time, anybody, who would it be?
You're saying we have a time machine?
Yes.
Hulk Hogan's last match.
Hulk Hogan's.
It was a 6-man tag in Europe. It wasn't promoted as being his last match. I don't think he knew it would be his last match, but that's the way the cookie crumbled. It wasn't even filmed. It was just for the people in that building. I think it was Germany. I could be wrong, but somewhere in Europe, maybe it was London. I don't know, but somewhere, not America, no television cameras, not pay-per-view. Hulk Hogan's last match would have been pretty damn big. And it's a shame we missed that, but
And it probably should have been big.
it would have been incredibly big. Yeah.
So he's still alive.
Yeah, but he's no longer.
He's also what? In his
He
60s, I guess.
respectfully, he walks with a cane now. I mean,
Yeah.
we couldn't physically do it.
Well,
But he's still. I don't know if you saw, but just yesterday, as we're recording this, he was on Fox and Friends announcing his new promotion, Real American Freestyle. So it's not pro wrestling, but it is pro wrestling. I mean that to say it's not sports entertainment like WWE, but if you were an incredible amateur wrestler in the ranks of the NCAA, but you decide you don't want to get punched in the face and learn jiu-jitsu, so your goal isn't UFC, and you don't really want to follow Kurt Angle's footsteps and become a sports entertainer with WWE, you just want to continue to pursue and compete in your lifelong passion of amateur wrestling. You know, how would you do that and make a living at that? Well, as of 2 days ago, there was no way to do that. But they just announced yesterday Real American Freestyle. So I imagine there will be profile pieces like you might have seen on American Idol or The Voice, where you understand guys' motivations and their why. So we get to see them at home or training, or, you know, what's going on with their little girl, or what was their childhood like. Or we're going to try to make the characters more relatable than just, hey, here's this random guy in blue tights and here's this random guy in green tights. And they're going to have the pyro and the smoke and the screens and the big time presentation like you would see at a WWE or a UFC, but it'll be different because it will be more amateur wrestling style. So it's called Real American Freestyle. And it just so happens that Hulk Hogan's theme song in wrestling was Real American by Rick Derringer, and his beer is Real American Beer. So I'm sure there's connective tissue there.
hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. I mean, it goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, War Eagle, and straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning, and then big old patches of North Georgia, Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure, and that's just the radio. Then there's a whole ton of y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web and logging in and watching the live stream, seeing inside the studio, the videos, the audios, all of it. Places like X, YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, our website, rightsidemedia.org, and then all you podcasters. Guys who catch it after the fact, 356,000 downloads of the podcast of this show.
0.5, 365.5 thousand.
Nice. Anyway, a ton of y'all have downloaded the podcast, so thank you for that. Anyway, the bottom line is wherever you catch it, we love you. We appreciate you. You're the reason why we do it. Thank you so much. I got a brand new texter in the line, JP. See if we get a name. So tell us where you are and who you are and where you're from. He says, long-time listener, first-time texter. Congress should be forced to do a lock-in to do their job. Can't leave until they agree to a compromise. Tired of shutting down the government over stupid stuff. I get it, man. I get it. Hey, let me go to the phones. There's somebody who held on during the break, so I want to honor his time. Jeremiah from Huntsville. Hey, man, how are you?
Hey, man, doing good. How you doing?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, I was actually going to call in and talk about the continuing resolution that, we're sure that will, happen at one point or another. But then, when I heard Mo Brooks, you read off his, and
Yeah.
I kind of thought that I wanted to pivot a little bit on that because, I was telling, this might be a very unpopular opinion on your show, but I'm going to give it anyway.
Okay.
I used to consider myself to be a conservative, but now I'm going to drop conservative. I'm just going to call myself a straight Christian. And the reason I say that's because as a Christian, my value in life is I'm going to have to stand on truth. And conservatives don't stand on truth anymore. And the reason I say that's because you can't sit here and watch everything that's going on in this world and continue to turn a blind eye to it. And my biggest problem with politics in general now, try to get your congressman on the phone. Any constituent, try to get them on the phone and not have to talk to one of the people that answer the phone for them. You can't get them on the phone. That's not representation anymore. And
Well,
when I
okay.
sit here and I watch what's happening, and some people say, well, do you know how many phone calls they have? And I'll give you a good example. Years ago, I lived in Georgia, and David Perdue was the congressman over there.
Right.
I called David Perdue probably 50 or 60 times. Never got him on the phone, but you know what I would get back in the email? Come out to David Perdue's tomorrow and come to his fish fry and put your dollars behind David Perdue. So congressmen care about our money, but not necessarily our opinion, because if I'm calling you, and I'm not harassed and calling every day, I would call once every couple of weeks, trying to do what I should have done, trying to get in touch with my congressman, because we were founded on no taxation without representation. Well, when I can't even get a congressman on the phone, that's no representation.
All right. So are you going to let me jump in now?
Yeah.
So Jeremiah, let me first of all say your Christian faith should be in front of your politics. Always.
Correct.
Unequivocal.
Correct.
I agree with that 100%. I am a Christian at my core. I am a conservative Republican in my outward beliefs. I will vote Republican because there's more of my Christian faith, I believe, tied to that party's actions than the others. That being said, if the roles were flipped, if the Democrat Party was the one that believed in the sanctity of life and the rule of law and was going to be doing all the things that I believe my faith calls for, I'd be a Democrat, but I'm not. So my Christianity, your Christianity, all of our Christianity should actually be the very first thing. There's that, and I agree with you 100%. Let me talk to you just a minute as a former elected official myself. So I was a state senator, which meant that I had 4 counties, which it meant that I had somewhere in the neighborhood of 156,000 constituents. And there were times when I would run into them at the grocery store. I'd see them at Sunday school. I would talk to them. They'd come to the state house. But the vast majority of them, if they tried to contact me, it wasn't that I couldn't talk to them, is that there's no way I could talk to them. So it wasn't that I was turning them away. In fact, I answered emails constantly. I went out and saw people regularly, and I gave out my cell phone number, and I have the same cell phone number now. But I will say this, it is impossible for a member of Congress to respond to every single phone call. And I hope you understand that, because when you say you called him 50 or 60 times, I would just say that at some point you're going to be frustrated if 50 or 60 times you're not getting them, because you won't get any of them 50 or 60 times. There's no way that's possible. They have literally hundreds of thousands of constituents. Now, that being said,
When I say I called 50 or 60 times, that was 50 or 60 times unanswered. Now, I would get generic emails back when I would send an email to them through their congressional website. And guess what? Half the time, I still have these emails. The emails were the same exact Let me go in my inbox and click a template and just send it back out. I got the same email twice for a complete different issue.
Yeah, and I think that's crap, and I agree with you. I've seen some pretty awful things. I was actually in one of our U.S. senators' office in D.C. not long ago, and I listened to the staff answering the phones and taking constituent calls, and I could tell. And by the way, they never let on when I could tell that a call was something that like say, well, ma'am, I'm sorry, we don't handle those. That's the White House's job. That's not something we can help you with. That I heard those calls, and they kept a very professional attitude. But I know for a fact, as I was there, people were coming and going, and they weren't lobbyists. There were constituent groups coming through. So what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to defend it, because I think there are some that it's just a job. They could care less about their constituents. But I have met a number of them that would talk to every person in their district if they could. So what I'm trying to tell you is, don't get so jaded that you can't believe for a second that there's good people in office. That's my encouragement to you, because there are some.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't say that because I'll never vote Democrat off of abortion alone. I'll never vote that way. But what I mean by that is, like you were talking about earlier, everything that's going on, and these people should be held accountable. They should be held accountable. You got to start putting the blame on the people that are in office and the Republicans at this point, who control the majority of the offices to a degree, and say, well, y'all are the ones that aren't holding anybody accountable. And so, that's why we're continuing to see the same things happening over and over every time the administration flips, is who gets crapped on generally. Republicans get crapped on.
I don't disagree with that. But I'll also
don't care what you do to them.
I'll also tell you too, that one of the things we've got a problem with right now is we don't have enough Republicans in the majority. We have the slimmest majority you could possibly have and still be called a majority. And so the frustrating thing is, like this CR that you called in originally that we're not talking about, but the CR you called in about, it can't get passed without getting past the procedural votes that are required. And that requires 60 votes. And we don't have a 60 vote majority. We're at 51.
Now they want to get rid of the filibuster too. So
I know. And have to nuke some stuff at some point. Jeremiah, I got to run, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You need to call in more often. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. Take care. That was a good call. Listen, I am not opposed to the idea of someone feeling jaded with politics. Having been a politician, I get jaded with politics. But I will tell you right now that if I can add any encouragement to what he just said, aside from totally agreeing that your faith ought to be first in all of it, is that I know virtually every state level and U.S. delegation member in our state of Alabama. I know them personally, and I can tell you that if they could be out there walking around in the grocery store and shaking hands at the barbecues and doing all that, they would much rather do that than to be in D.C. or to be in the State House in Montgomery. The majority of them are very much people. You can't be a non-people person and make it in public office for too long.
Yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Like there's politicians that fall into that genre, but not all of them.
Now I saw some bad ones.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I've seen some bad ones,
but I agree with you. Not all of them are that way.
I've seen the ones that I wouldn't model myself after, but there's a bunch of good ones that are still there. And I was encouraged when I got to Montgomery, because I think I went in with almost the same attitude or same thoughts that I heard from Jeremiah a minute ago. And I got there and I was pleasantly surprised. But I'll tell you what I was also frustrated about. I got there and the people who were my good friends, out on the block before I got elected, suddenly thought I was corrupt because I suddenly got elected.
Yeah.
I didn't change.
Oh, so
Oh, you're one of them now.
Yeah.
What does that mean, one of them? Anyway, are we going to get we're not going to get the story right now. I don't think we're going to get that story. So Tuberville said something about Feinbaum.
Yeah. I mean, the gist of it is Tuberville went on Steve Bannon's show, The War Room, and talked about how, Feinbaum, if he were to run, would have a bunch of big names behind him, whatever that means. But also said the name ID, having 100% name ID in Alabama is going to help him a lot. But I will say this. I think there's another thread to pull on this. Feinbaum said this in his interview with Clay Travis, where he purposefully talked about how he was thinking about running for Senate, that he wanted to interview Trump before the 2019 LSU Alabama game that he was attending, and ESPN wouldn't let him.
They wouldn't let him.
ESPN told him he could not interview Trump. And he brought up in the interview how ESPN had interviewed Obama almost every year during March Madness to talk about his bracket. but that they wouldn't let him interview Trump. And so
Wow.
that, I think,
Wow.
paints the big picture of, he may have been a conservative this whole time, but was a little bit trigger shy because, we saw what happened to Sage Steele at ESPN for speaking conservatism. So, I think after the Charlie Kirk assassination, like he said, it may have woken him up a little bit about what's really important is talking ball and all. I mean, that has its own place, but I think he may have gained a little bit of perspective about, what's really important. But I think the ESPN aspect of it is just another example of ESPN and what they're about.
What do we got right now? How much time we got? Let's talk. How long is that clip you got of Tuberville talking?
I think it's about 45 seconds.
Let's play it. Let's go ahead and play it. This is Tuberville talking with Steve Bannon about whether Feinbaum would run for the U.S. Senate. That's crazy. Talking
all a long time, and Paul is just a commentator that created a division between fans on both sides of whatever teams he wanted to talk about that day on the radio or TV, and he had a dialogue. I'm going to tell you, Paul's smart. He loves the country. Again, been a friend of mine for a long time. I have not talked with him about it. I did an interview with him about 30 minutes about 2 months ago, face to face, and it went well. But, I tell you, he's got 100% name ID in Alabama, and he'd have a lot of big people behind him. He would be a force in the race if he decided to get into it. But, again, I'm for people that comes up here that don't want to be in politics. They want to come up and help.
Wow. That was interesting. So he does tout something that is huge in politics, name ID. If you don't have name ID and financing, you can't run for a major race.
So I guess Tuberville kind of subtly there said he had talked to him earlier about running. So
no, he said he didn't talk to him about that when he talked to him earlier. He had not talked to him about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Okay. All right. We got to take a break. We'll take that break. We'll come right back. Last break of the day on a Taco Tuesday. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Purposes, but Hogan and my pal Eric Bischoff are behind it, and they're having their first event in Cleveland on August 30th.
And he's still Thunder Lips to some.
Absolutely. Forever Thunder Lips.
Speaking of movies, so if you've seen it, one of the saddest movies that had a genuine sense of feel to it would be The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke.
Yes.
You seen that one?
I have, yes, sir.
Does that have a sense of accuracy to it?
In 1,000,000%.
Really?
Yeah. The
tragedy story, for those who don't know, of a guy who had trouble leaving behind his wrestling life when his body wouldn't let him keep up, and other events in life as matter.
Well, yeah, specifically, he put wrestling in front of everything.
Everything.
Including marriages, including his responsibilities as a father, his financial well-being, his own physical well-being.
It was his identity.
It was.
He lost everything else because of it.
And he couldn't let go of that feeling and the dream, and he hung on too long. And I think, that was the reality for a lot of professional wrestlers. But guys who may have been in that situation or circumstance 15 years ago when that movie came out, they're not now because of the rebirth of nostalgia, which I do think in large part is because of podcasting.
Podcasting and the internet give it a second life.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Like you and I could put together, I don't know if you saw, but as we're recording just last week, they did a pop culture expo in Huntsville. Well, there weren't a ton of stars who have a hit show on NBC this week at that event. It was, My Name is Earl, which was on NBC 20 years ago. Yeah. So nostalgia is very much in fashion. They did. The guy from Ghostbusters was there. I mean, and that movie came out 40 some odd years ago. So nostalgia is very, very marketable right now. So if the Mickey Rourke character, Randy the Ram was his character's name. Yeah. If he was around today, Randy the Ram would still be making 6 figures working 2 days a week. He'd make more today than he did when he was actually wrestling.
How about that?
Yeah. So it's a lot better now.
Well, the Randy the Ram character was legit in terms of its realism. I mean, right. I watched that. It was one of those movies that kind of left me just feeling almost crestfallen for the guy as I watched it. But there's also some amazing personalities in the industry. They have to be. They're all larger than life to some degree, whether they're on the pro or the con side. Whether they're the bad guy or the good guy in the ring at that particular moment. They've all got this incredible persona, and then they've got some that bring the character to life with makeup and more additional, the Ric Flair style. Yes. That being said, there's some crazy athleticism in there too.
Oh, the best athletes
I
in the
mean,
world.
there's no way to fake some of what happens. I mean, people can look at it and go, "How much of that is real?" Well, did you just do a double gainer off the ropes and land in the crowd and walk away from it? Nobody else could. So, athletics. How much of what you see in the industry right now is like bona fide athletics? And who is the greatest athlete in wrestling?
Well,
Athlete.
That's a great question. I want to say the greatest athlete in the history of wrestling might be Kurt Angle.
Okay.
Kurt Angle won the Olympic gold medal in wrestling for the United States in 1996, and he did it with a broken neck. And the way he was able to do that is he would train to failure, and when the muscles failed in his body and they were no longer firing, that's when he would really start training. Like most people train to failure and then stop, he would persist. His ability to focus and block out the pain was at times his best friend when it came to his athletic pursuits. But now, as an older gentleman, he's paying the price for that. He's had a double knee replacement. I don't know a lot of guys who have not just a double knee replacement, but at the same time. But like his brain is like, well, I don't want to have to be out, it's 9 months with one knee and 9 months with another. Let's just do them both. And that requires relearning how to walk completely, but he did it. So it's probably Kurt Angle as far as the best athlete, but the athletes of today are even, by and large, as a rule, even more athletic than they used to be because we know so much more about diet and nutrition, and the schedule is a lot looser than it used to be. Back in Ric Flair's day, he would legitimately have a schedule that would make your mind melt. 300 days a year, never home.
On the road constantly. In a different hotel. And in that era, it's not like you had your smartphone that had all of your itinerary. He traveled with a paper clip of airline tickets. I mean, it was just, and back then, people don't even think about this. He's lugging those big robes around. Luggage didn't even have wheels on it. I mean, so just you're all. I said that to my wife recently. Whoever came up with wheels on a suitcase was a genius.
Genius. Give that man all the credit.
Yeah.
So yeah, the athleticism is definitely different today because people don't have to. I mean, you got to think about it. If you're a professional athlete like Ric Flair back then, you're in the main event.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so John from Huntsville has the grades in already. He says Dale Strong gets an A+ for his strong performance. You see what he did there? Dun-dun-dun.
Good pun.
For his strong performance and spot-on comments, Phil Williams gets an A++ for his absolutely amazing performance, which means today's winner with the perfect A++ is obviously the king of soundboards, JP. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You listen, JP crawled underneath the desk, got the plugs back in, made things work, pushed all the right buttons, played all the sound effects, did the things. You win.
Thank you.
I have no qualms or compunction about it. I can go to the phones right now. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I just crossed into the state of Corvettes, horse racing, and chickens.
That would be Kentucky.
That's right.
Well, good on you, man. You're making good time today. Beautiful weather for driving too.
Yeah, it is. Glad it's air conditioned here. It's 88 degrees outside here.
Oh man, is it really? I thought it was fall already. What are we doing? Okay, so
I don't know. The leaves haven't turned very much, have they?
no. But you know what though? It's funny how they all know how to do it at the same time. So pretty soon there'll be like a weekend you'll wake up and go, wait a minute, all the leaves changed. Well, tell me what you think about today's topics, man. We talked about the shutdown. We talked about the inciting of violence. We ran the gamut. What do you think?
Well, on the shutdown and everything, I'm not so sure it ain't a bad idea if Trump's going to get rid of a bunch of people. They need to be doged out of existence, I guess, and because if they're unnecessary, for the operation of the country, maybe we don't need them at all.
Doged out. I haven't heard Doge in a while. Hang on a second, Jeff. We're going to play a sound effect. You got a Doge sound effect? Play that Doge sound effect.
Doge.
Doge. All right, there you go. You brought it up, man. We hadn't played that in forever. I'd forgotten about it.
Okay. had a hard time finding that button. I thought.
So you're saying if Trump's going to downsize government and this gives him the opportunity to do it, you say go for it, huh?
Yeah, I don't really realize how they're going to do that. But, I think that, there should be some hurt in this process and everything because basically, if you're a government worker and you're not if you're not
non-essential,
what am I trying to say now? Essential. You just get a paid vacation because they're going to pay you anyway. I think it should be just like the real world. If I get laid off and don't do any work for a week or whatever, I don't get the money for that. I go sign up for unemployment after a week and a half or a 7-day waiting period or whatever it is. But I think it should be the same way as government officials.
Well, I don't know. I don't know who did what to your pickled eggs today, man. But you're mean. Why are you so mean today?
I'm not mean at all. I'm just saying that I'm welcome to the real world. If I don't have nothing for me to do, they tell me, "Hey, Jeff, sit home. We ain't got nothing for you to do," and I don't get paid for that.
Yeah.
So why should it be any different than for a federal employee?
One of the worst examples of this that I saw was in the aftermath or in the waning days of COVID, when the federal government was slinging money out there. The state of Alabama got a huge tranche of money, like a lot of states did. And instead of using it to bolster the private sector and to give something back to its citizens, they used it to fund government. And the people who were sent home from a private sector job, a lot of them lost their jobs. People sent home from a government job drank coffee and got their paycheck every week. And it was really galling.
I think what that new prison isn't that what it got built with?
Probably. Yeah. In fact, is that prison, is it even being built yet? I mean, where are we on that? I got to find out what's going on with that.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. All right. Well,
but yeah, I mean, he's like I say, he's supposed to get rid of I don't realize the process that he can do this. I mean, I didn't, if it's already funded and everything by Congress, I didn't know he could change it.
I doubt that there's a whole lot's going to happen. What he did was he sent a memo out. He did an executive order talking about, and I got about 30 seconds here, about downsizing government and encouraging folks to do that. Then he sent a memo out with regards to the shutdown. If we're in a shutdown and you declare somebody to be non-essential, you need to consider them as a possible reduction in force, because if they're non-essential, then they're just non-essential. So I guarantee you there's going to be a whole lot of department heads trying to figure out how to justify this. But hey, bro, we gotta leave it there. We gotta take it though. But you be safe on the road, and we'll talk at you tomorrow. All right.
Have a good one, people.
You too, buddy. By the way, the new texter we had a while ago, it didn't say his name. We just got it. Is Adam from Meridianville. So Adam from Meridianville, if you're still on the line, we're just glad you're in the text lines and glad you are with us. Todd from Huntsville just screaming in all caps, "Shut it down." Wow. Todd. Okay. Griffin from Tuscaloosa says, why aren't Democrat politicians such as Maxine Waters and Schumer and others that make statements promoting violence being prosecuted? Well, because it's good to be a Democrat, first of all. That being said, I still believe with all my heart, and I say it with unequivocation, there's more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We will see you tomorrow.